Chapter 503. The other party is here. 4 minutes and 10 seconds to reach Junction A. There will be a 30-second red light. We must succeed. Hearing the voice coming from the walkie-talkie, the man's eyes lit up and he smiled. I'm a professional. Tossing the walkie-talkie on the passenger seat, the man took out a cigarette, lit it, and put it in his mouth. He looked at the time again before stepping on the accelerator. 3 minutes left, the current speed is 35 kilometers per hour. 2 minutes left, 50 kilometers per hour. 30 seconds left, 80 kilometers per hour. Arrive at the estimated time. The man calculated in his mind. 10, 9, 8. The man could already see the lights at the junction ahead. A black car slowly drove through the junction, the timing was just right. For this moment, he had traveled this road 5 times that night to accurately calculate the starting position and speed at each time to ensure that he would arrive at the destination within 3 seconds. It's the target. After the man confirmed that there were no other cars behind the other party, he did not slow down at all. Boom. As the car vibrated, the other party flew out as expected. And the position was just right. As a precaution, he had installed a rack at the back of the car. His center of gravity was mainly on the top of the rack. If the position was wrong, he would have to make an emergency turn and use the center of gravity of the rack to flip the car, directly squashing the other party into a discus. However, there was no need for that now. With a smile on his face, the man stepped on the accelerator and continued to ram. He even made a slight change in direction. As long as he could ram the other party into the wall on the side of the road, the other party would definitely die. 5 million in hand, the man thought to himself. Then, at this moment, his eyes narrowed. He saw that when the car tumbled in the air, the already deformed door flew out, and then a red shadow appeared outside the car like a ghost. The car seemed to have been stopped in time, and the momentum of the tumbling had completely disappeared. It just floated in the air. Looking closely, the woman in red was holding the hood of the car with one hand in the air. The Audi A6, which weighed close to 2 tons, was lifted several meters into the air like a toy. Impossible. The man's pupils shrunk to the size of a needle. The scene in front of him was impossible. Absolutely impossible. Even seeing a UFO was more believable than the scene in front of him. He was not the only one who was shocked. Even the few cars that had just passed by the junction stopped by the side of the road. The people in the cars all stared with wide eyes as they watched the figure lift the car 6 to 7 meters into the air and then land on the ground. God! I believe in martial arts again. Is this an ability? The people on the bus were all dumbfounded. They didn't know how to understand this matter. The truck passed directly under the Empress and Renbachien. The driver couldn't think. That scene just now was too shocking to him. Seeing the building getting closer and closer, he suddenly came back to his senses and turned the steering wheel, but it was too late. Boom! What should we do? A car stopped by the side of the road. The 2 people in the car saw this scene and were trembling all over. They had been following behind Renbachien for about 100 meters and had seen this scene clearly. At this moment, the 2 of them were completely flustered. Go back and inform the boss. The 2 of them didn't dare to stay any longer and quickly drove away. At the same time, they also made a phone call and told the others about the shocking scene just now. Cough, cough. Renbachien felt guilty as he climbed out of the car. The Empress was fine. Unless a nuclear bomb exploded, a truck wouldn't be able to do anything to her. However, he didn't have the Empress's strength. Of course, with the Empress around, nothing would happen to him. However, the scene of the truck crashing into him still sent a chill down his spine. The other party was really hateful. His first move was to take someone's life. Almost instantaneously, he suspected Wang Ji. The accident happened at noon, and he was directly hit by a truck at night. Furthermore, that truck didn't sound its horn or slow down. No matter how he looked at it, it seemed like it was trying to kill him. Renbochin touched his forehead and his hand was stained with blood. Just now, the truck directly crashed into the side where the Empress was sitting. The Empress was fine, but he suffered some minor injuries. Bastard! Renbochin gritted his teeth and turned his head to look at the condition of the truck. He saw that the truck had already fallen to the ground, leaving a long mark on the ground. Half of the truck had crashed into the building in front. The situation inside was completely covered in dust, and nothing could be seen. The Empress was standing beside the truck, and no one knew what she was thinking. "It's too heavy, I can't pull it out," the Empress said as she returned to Renbochin's side in a flash. The truck itself weighed about 15 tons. In addition to the things it carried, it was close to 30 tons. Even if the Empress could lift a car that weighed close to 2 tons into the air, it would still be difficult for her to pull a heavy truck that had crashed into the building. "I reckon they are dead by now," Renbochin said as he looked at the half of the truck that was exposed outside. "However, I can roughly guess who did it." "The people from this morning?" the Empress asked coldly. "Most likely." Renbochin took off his clothes and wrapped them around his head, making himself look like a mummy. "Find out where they are," the Empress said murderously. Originally, she was already a little disappointed that she couldn't watch the movie. There was actually someone who was so daring to attack her. He simply felt that he had lived too long. Renbochin nodded. It wasn't his style to not take revenge when there was a grudge. A gentleman would take revenge from morning till night. He touched his phone and realized that it was still on him. He held it in his hand and hesitated for a while before making the call. At this moment, he felt that it was a little troublesome because he didn't know where the other party lived. Yang Sen should be able to get his address, but he definitely wouldn't tell him. Unless he risked a rift with the nation to threaten Yang Senator, however, the loss outweighed the gain. After all, it wasn't a good idea to threaten the nation. If he could endure for now and find the other party's location before taking revenge, it would be much easier. Unfortunately, he never liked to take revenge in the future. Today's revenge must be taken today. Fortunately, there was still a way that didn't require him to shed all pretense of cordiality with the nation. Didn't the other party have an injured person? He would capture her first. There were close to 40 top-grade A hospitals in Shanghai. Such a person would definitely be in the best hospital. Therefore, as long as he went to one of the top 3 hospitals, there was an 80% chance of finding the other party. Renbochin turned on his phone and searched for the 3 best hospitals in Shanghai. After memorizing their names, he immediately switched off his phone. "Your Majesty, let's go to Zhongshan Hospital first. Can you still recognize the people from this morning?" "I have a photographic memory," the Empress said proudly. She then lowered her voice. "However, these ants aren't worthy of my attention," Renbochin thought. "This means that you didn't look at them, so you don't remember them? This is indeed Your Majesty's style. Let's wait for a few minutes and see if anyone comes to investigate." Renbochin looked around and saw a few cars parked by the roadside in the distance. "Your Majesty, are there any problems with these people?" The Empress glanced in that direction and said faintly, "They are all ordinary people." "Let's wait then. Perhaps someone from the other party will come to investigate." After Renbochin finished speaking, the two of them hid in the shadows by the roadside. After a while, there were indeed people who came to investigate, but they were indeed ordinary people. One by one, they approached cautiously while making calls. Soon after, police cars and ambulances quickly arrived at the scene. "Let's go," Renbochin said. It seemed like he had to try his luck at the hospital. As soon as he finished speaking, the Empress lifted him by the collar. Once again, he felt like he was riding on a cloud with strong winds blowing against his nostrils. Seeing that everything on both sides was rapidly retreating, the Empress then jumped onto a tall building and moved in the direction that Renbachien had pointed out. Not long after Renbachien left, a few people came to the scene. After understanding the situation, they quickly called Yang's senior accident. The truck directly hit the car and sent it flying. Are they all right? Qi Zixiao carried the car and flew 6 to 7 meters into the air. After that, the two of them left the scene, and their whereabouts are unknown. Yang Sen's heart trembled when he heard the contents of the call. He quickly hung up and called Renbachien, but the other party's phone was turned off. It's over. Something big is going to happen. An hour later, Renbachien and the Empress arrived at Zhongshan Hospital. After inquiring about the location of the special service ward, they walked toward that building. Just as they reached the bottom of the building, they saw a few people supporting a lady in a patient's gown and hurriedly walking out. When one of them saw Renbachien and the Empress, his facial expression changed drastically. He repeatedly urged, "Quick!" At the same time, he and the other person beside him became vigilant. Chapter 504. Renbachien knew that they were the people he was looking for just by looking at their vigilant attitude. He also knew that the incident this time was indeed caused by the people behind them. Otherwise, why would they rush out of the hospital at this time and have such a change in expression when they saw the two of them? There was no need to even ask. Renbachien calmly walked toward them with a smile on his face and said, "You guys are really good people. You were afraid that I wouldn't be able to find them, so you specially sent them here." When the people opposite heard Renbachien's words, their expressions changed drastically. They quickly stuffed the woman into the car and closed the door. The rest of the people didn't even get in the car, and the car immediately started moving. "Leaving now. Without an experienced driver like me, what if you go the wrong way?" Renbachien moved his feet, and his body immediately bounced a few meters away and landed beside the car. "Stop him." The few people outside the car immediately rushed toward Renbachien. Renbachien grinned happily. As a dignified manual expert, he finally had the chance to make a move. Then, a red phantom flashed across the scene, and the few people immediately flew backward. "Your Majesty, don't let the car go. Spare them. I want them alive," Renbachien said somewhat resentfully. It seemed like it wasn't time for him to make a move yet. The Empress's body instantly disappeared and landed on the car that was already a few meters away. She then slammed her palm downward. Bang! Renbachien could feel the vibration coming from under his feet. The windows of the Mercedes-Benz nanny van were all shattered. The cement below the car flew everywhere, and the chassis directly smashed to the ground. Looking from the side, the nanny van was directly smashed, and all 4 of its wheels were smashed into the ground. Other than the glass shattering, there wasn't much damage to the entire car. The few people lying on the ground hadn't lost consciousness yet, and they were completely dumbfounded when they saw this scene. Needless to say, the surrounding people were even more shocked. As the best hospital in Shanghai, there were many people going in and out even in the middle of the night. This move of the Empress made everyone who saw this scene dumbfounded. Renbachien turned his head to take a look. There weren't many people, but there were more than 10 of them. The impact of this situation was pretty bad, but he was also forced to do this. Who did he offend by driving home? Renbachien went forward and opened the car door. There were only 3 people in the car, the driver, the woman who was helped into the car just now, and the other female bodyguard. All of them widened their eyes and looked at him in horror. Taking a closer look, it was a girl about 16 or 17 years old. She was dressed in loose clothes, and one of her hands was fixed in a cast. She looked delicate and pitiful, especially her fearful eyes, which were quite interesting. "Come out by yourself?" Renbachien asked with a smile. The girl quickly shook her head. Who are you? What do you want? Renbochin leaned forward, grabbed her arm, and pulled her out. The girl immediately fell to the ground. Her face was full of fear, and tears were flowing out. Let go of Miss, the driver shouted, and the female bodyguard pounced on Renbochin. Go back. Renbochin gently patted the female nurse's face. I didn't want to hit anyone. The female bodyguard's neck was almost twisted at a right angle. Renbochin suspected that he heard a cracking sound. Renbochin turned around and searched for a cell phone from a bodyguard who was lying on the ground. He gestured to everyone and said, "Ask your boss to call me as soon as possible. My patience is limited. If you are late, I will sink her into Heilongjiang." What are you going to do? There are so many people here. Aren't you afraid of the police? The girl on the ground trembled. I'm afraid. Renbochin sighed. Then, without waiting for the girl to speak, he said, I can't sleep if I don't take revenge. Do you know that insomnia is very painful? Ah. Let's go. Renbochin nodded at the Empress. The Empress looked at the girl on the ground. She grabbed her leg with one hand and Renbochin's collar with the other. In an instant, the three of them disappeared into the night. Ah! Just as the girl screamed, the Empress shook her hand. Immediately, the girl felt as if all the joints in her body had broken apart. She could only let out groaning sounds that were not suitable for children. Let's find a roof, Renbochin said. After a while, the three of them landed on the roof of a 10-story building. What's that smell? Renbochin smelled a foul smell as soon as he landed. Following which, he looked at the girl who was paralyzed on the ground with disdain. At this moment, the girl on the ground couldn't care less about these things. First, she was forcibly taken away from the car. Then, she was grabbed by the feet and rode on the clouds. She could only watch as the tall buildings and the ground below swept past her head. It was already good enough that she didn't faint. Just as the Empress put her on the ground, she started to cry. Renbochin stood at the edge of the building and felt the wind blowing against his face. Looking at the night view of the city below, he suddenly felt like taking a selfie. Come, smile. Renbochin took the bodyguard's phone and took a picture of himself and the red figure behind him. Then, he sent it to his own phone. Just as he finished doing this, his phone lit up again. The voice of Gokuraku Jodo came directly from the phone. Looking at the big boss displayed on the screen, Renbochin smiled and accepted the call. Only a faint breathing sound came from the other end of the phone, and no one spoke. Renbochin wasn't in a hurry and waited patiently. Who are you? Why did you capture my granddaughter? After half a minute, the voice of an old man could no longer wait. I'm Ultraman Tiga, and I'm about to return to Nebula M78. I saw that your granddaughter's bones are amazing, so I want to take her in as my disciple. I want to impart my ultimate skill, Buddha's palm, Renbochin said cheekily as he sat at the edge of the building. What do you want? Say it. Don't be greedy. The old man's voice continued. It's very simple. You and your wife sit in the car, and I'll drive a truck at 80 miles per hour to hit you. As long as you die, this matter will be over. Renbochin squinted his eyes and smiled. Following Renbochin's voice, heavy breathing came from the other end of the phone. Tell me something practical. What exactly do you want? The old man suppressed the anger in his heart and said. Or you can tell me where you are. As long as you don't die tonight, this matter will be over. Hong Kong, Wenhua Hotel. I'll wait for you here. The old man sounded carefree. Renbochin, damn, you're actually not in Shanghai. I have a very regrettable news to tell you. There's going to be another missing person in this world. Renbochin felt a toothache after recovering from his shock. That old bastard was actually not in Shanghai. It would be troublesome for him to catch him. Do you really think you can be lawless? The old man said angrily. I can't afford to be labeled as lawless. You should be the lawless one, right? Since you're not going to show up, your granddaughter will help you fend off this disaster. People say that raising a jade to fend off disasters, but you are raising a granddaughter to fend off disasters. I wonder how many granddaughters you have. How many disasters can they fend off? Ren Bachyan sneered. Don't bring disaster to your family. Aren't you afraid that something will happen to your family if you don't abide by the rules? The old man said angrily. Ren Bachyan even heard the sound of something being smashed on the other end of the phone. Ren Bachyan sneered. If the country allowed something to happen to his family, then it wouldn't just be 1 or 2 people who would die. No matter what happened between him and the old man, the country would guarantee that nothing would happen to his family. Ren Bachyan was very confident about this. I'm here to bid farewell to your granddaughter. It's a pity that she won't be able to see such a beautiful world in the future. Ren Bachyan placed the phone next to the girl's ear. Grandpa, save me. The girl cried and shouted. Ren Bachyan immediately hung up the phone. He couldn't be bothered to listen to what Wang Ji was saying. Do you want to live? Ren Bachyan squatted beside the girl and smiled. Where do you live? Ren Bachyan's smile was like that of a demon in the eyes of the girl. She shouted hoarsely, if you kill me, Grandpa will avenge me. Do you really think your grandpa can avenge you? Or does he have the ability? Ren Bachyan asked with a smile. He definitely will. The girl's face was full of fear, but her voice was firm. What a pity. Ideals are beautiful, but reality is cruel, Ren Bachyan muttered as he stood up. After this incident, he realized that it was too troublesome to rely on the country for everything. Although he didn't provoke others, there would always be all sorts of things that came to him. It seemed like he still had to establish his own power on Earth so that he wouldn't be tied down when things happened. Well, he should first get 100 burly Earthwill experts with arms that could run a horse. Kill her? The Empress asked faintly. The fear on the girl's face deepened, and her whole body trembled. In her eyes, this man and woman were 2 demons. Do you have any last words? This world is very beautiful, but it's a pity that you can't see it anymore. Ren Bachyan turned his head and looked at the girl. My grandpa will definitely avenge me. The police will definitely catch you, the girl said with a face full of despair. Ren Bachyan was a little bored. This kind of reply made it seem as if he was the villain in a television drama. However, he was the victim. Who did he offend? He couldn't return home in the middle of the night. Furthermore, he had to endure the cold wind on the roof of this big building and was hated by others. Chapter 505. You want me to make peace and release him? Yang Sen raised his voice and said angrily, what did you do earlier? There's no way to make peace. Let him prepare for his funeral. It's just a misunderstanding. It's a peaceful society now. Who can be lawless? The magnetic voice of an old man was heard on the other end of the phone. With old Wang's status, he shouldn't be threatened. Moreover, his granddaughter has been kidnapped, which is too much. Get someone to release him. No matter what, we have to consider the big picture. Not to mention kidnapping and murder, these kinds of things could be ignored. We represent the nation. Is there really someone who wants to challenge the authority of the nation? Who is the other party? He's too daring. If something really happens to old Wang's granddaughter, it will be a disaster. Does he really think he's the Monkey King? Even the Monkey King can't escape from the palm of the Buddha, let alone a human. It's too late to talk about this now. I can't even find him. Yang Sen had a headache. Get Wang Ji to live in seclusion and not reveal his whereabouts. So serious. The other person was surprised. He had said so much, but Yang-sun still said this. It seemed like the other party was really not to be trifled with. It's very serious. It's almost the same as what you said. Wang Ji has really done it this time. There are many things that I can't tell you. You will find out in the future, Yang-sun said. After all, only a few people knew about Renbaqian, and he couldn't tell them the specific situation. However, Wang Ji was really in big trouble this time. He was in the top 100 of the world's richest people and might even be at the top of the list. However, didn't you see who you provoked this time? The person on the other end of the phone still doubted whether Renbaqian would be lawless. In fact, there was no doubt that he was really lawless. He more or less understood Renbaqian's character. After all, there was a department that specialized in studying the two of them. Revenge was a certainty. It would be strange if he didn't take revenge. It wasn't an exaggeration to say that he would seek revenge for the smallest grievance. He didn't usually provoke others and rarely showed his face. However, if someone provoked him, he wouldn't show any mercy. The Jean family in S City was the best example. He directly exterminated the entire family, regardless of whether they were involved in the matter, regardless of whether they were male or female, young or old. His methods were truly chilling. Besides Renbaqian, Qi Zixiao, who was beside him, couldn't communicate with anyone else. It was as if she viewed everyone else as ants. Not only were these two people very important, but their strength was also no different from Superman in the movies. Just today at the scene of the car accident, when the car flipped in the air, he instantly got out of the car and jumped 6 or 7 meters high while carrying a car that weighed nearly 2 tons. Was this something a human could do? Even though he already knew Qi Zixiao's strength, he was still shocked. He had seen it all through the surveillance camera. Even though he had already known the other party's strength, he was still shocked. He could also feel the other party's inhuman strength, speed, and physical toughness. Wang Ji actually dared to use such an extreme method to attack these two people. He simply had a death wish. If anything were to happen to these two, the country would not let Wang Ji off. Speaking of which, it was funny. If someone wanted to touch these two people, no matter who it was, the country would not let them go. However, these two people wanted to take revenge, and he had to stop them. This was where he was in a difficult position. No matter what happens to Wang Ji this time, break off your relationship with him if you can, Yang-sun kindly reminded him. The expression of the person on the other end of the phone immediately turned serious. For Yang-sun to say this, it meant that the threat didn't come from the people who had a conflict with Wang Ji, but from the system that he was rooted in. That was why he said that after this incident, he would immediately break off his relationship with Wang Ji. But how could this be possible? Not to mention other things, just the oil rights in the US were a big protective talisman. That's it. I won't say anything else. Yang-sun hung up the phone and felt a headache. His men were one step too late at the scene of the car accident and the hospital. Now that the other party didn't want to see him, it would be as difficult as ascending to heaven to find them with their skills. Fortunately, there was still a chance. As long as the other party couldn't find Wang Ji, they would definitely show up. Now, he would go to their place to see if he could find them. If they were ordinary people, they naturally wouldn't be able to go back. However, these two people couldn't be viewed with common sense. They had to rest, right? Could it be that they could sneak into a hotel to rest like they did when they were fleeing overseas? One had to know that the two of them were bringing another person with them. The most suitable place for them to stay was naturally their own home. At the thought of this, Yang-sun got up and hurriedly walked out of the door. He hoped that the person was still alive. Yang-sun guessed correctly. Renbaqian and the Empress had really returned home. He tied the girl up like a mummy, stuffed her mouth with something, and lay on the bed. Until now, he hadn't asked for the girl's name. Regardless of whether she was innocent or not, regardless of how bright her future was supposed to be, this matter could no longer be resolved peacefully. Her fate was sealed because of this. Being born into a rich and powerful family was a good thing. She enjoyed the wealth that Wang Ji brought and naturally had to bear the hatred that Wang Ji provoked. In Renbaqian's eyes, there were no innocent people. Just like the people from the Jin family. After being in a daze for more than an hour, the Empress walked into his room and said, "Someone's here." Renbaqian immediately woke up and heard the doorbell at the same time. "They're gone." It's not good for anyone to shed all pretenses of cordiality. At this time, there were only two groups of people who could be here. One was the people from the Messier 87 department, and the other was Wang Ji's people. If it was the former, he didn't want to meet them now. At this time, downstairs, Yang Sen pressed the doorbell for a long time. Seeing that there was no response, he gestured to the young man beside him. He immediately took out a tablet and pressed it for a long time. Then, the smart door lock made a slight click. Yang Sen pushed the door open and saw that the villa was deserted. "Mr. Ren. Can you say a few words?" Yang Sen shouted. "No matter what, the country has its laws. I know that you are angry now, but there are other ways to solve this matter other than purely relying on force. Force can't solve all problems. The country will definitely give you an explanation for this matter." Renbaqian, who was on the roof, curled his lips when he heard the voices in the villa. Force indeed couldn't solve all problems, but it might be the most convenient and satisfying way to solve them. Of course, he wouldn't use other methods to solve problems that could be solved by force. Only when force couldn't solve problems would it be time to show his wisdom. Unfortunately, it wasn't necessary now. "Let's go." Renbaqian pointed to the forest behind him and gestured to the Empress. The three of them disappeared on the roof again. Yang Sen shouted for a long time, but there was no response. He then walked upstairs. "Minister, there were people here just now. They just left. Someone came out after checking the bedroom. Spread out and look for them. Pay special attention to the roof," Yang Sen ordered. However, he also knew that the chances of finding them were very slim. The other party was too fast and skilled. If they didn't want to see him, it would be useless even if he dug 3 feet into the ground. After a while, everyone found nothing. Yang Sen was already mentally prepared for this. He said, "In addition, a few people go and look around to see if there's anything valuable. Remember, don't mess around. Things that have been moved must be returned to their original state. Do you want to install 2 surveillance devices and listening devices? As long as they come back, we will know immediately." "No need." Yang Sen waved his hand. If the other party found out about the installation of surveillance devices and listening devices, he reckoned that he would be in big trouble. "Minister, there's a discovery. Human limbs were found in a refrigerator in the kitchen." Yang Sen was shocked when he heard this and thought to himself, "It can't be. Did these two really kill the hostage? And even leave it in the refrigerator? This is really a fight to the death." When he rushed to the kitchen and saw the contents of the refrigerator, he finally heaved a sigh of relief. The inside of the refrigerator wasn't as miserable as he thought it would be. There was only an arm and a leg in the refrigerator, as well as a liver, stomach, kidney, and spleen that were separately wrapped up and placed in the refrigerator. From the arm and leg, it could be seen that this belonged to a man. "Bring it back for testing and find out its identity," Yang Sen ordered. It was impossible for him to ignore such things. However, he had some conjectures that these limbs probably didn't belong to an earthling. There was no need to store the bodies of earthlings like this. Furthermore, Renbaqian had brought the bodies of Earthwill experts from the paradise to the laboratory. The limbs here probably came from the blessed enclave as well. Furthermore, he had a feeling that the owner of these limbs was probably not ordinary. Otherwise, the other party wouldn't have stored them like this. If he guessed correctly, this corpse was prepared to be handed over to him by Renbochin. Unfortunately, it was disrupted by Wang Ji's matter. Chapter 506. After Yang Sen and the rest left, Renbochin returned to the villa. "You're still acting like a thief when you're back home." Renbochin was a little puzzled. Then, he shifted his gaze to the girl who had already given up struggling. "If it wasn't for you and your grandfather, why would I have to do this?" After walking one round upstairs and downstairs, Renbochin realized that Tingyu's limbs and internal organs had disappeared from the fridge. He didn't care about this. After all, he had originally intended to bring them to the laboratory. But even so, he still had to talk to Yang Sen about it in the future. Did he think it was his own house just because he wanted to take it? When he returned upstairs, Renbochin realized that the Empress had thrown aside many things in her cabinet. Among them were the lipsticks and cosmetics that he had bought. "What's wrong?" Renbochin was astonished. "Someone touched you, I can feel it." Looking at the Empress's expression, it was obvious that she wasn't very happy at this moment. Although it didn't seem like a big deal and it was just touched by someone, don't forget her identity. After all, she was the emperor of a country. How could she not be concerned when her things were touched by a stranger without her knowing? "I will find trouble with Yang Sen later," Renbochin consoled her. He leaned against the door and looked at the Empress, who was sitting on the bed. "What else are you looking at?" The Empress raised her head in dissatisfaction. "Good night, Your Majesty." Renbochin placed his hand on his chest and bowed. After sleeping for an unknown number of hours, he woke up and saw that the sky outside was already bright. After charging the bodyguard's phone, he turned it on and saw a series of text messages and missed calls. Not long after, his phone rang again. Renbochin picked it up and saw that the name displayed on the screen was Director Wang. Yesterday, he had taken the time to learn more about Wang Ji and his company. He had a better understanding of the Wang father and son. If he wasn't wrong, this CEO Wang was Wang Ji's son and the girl's father, Wang Xuanli. "Mr. Ren. I think we can talk." Renbochin had just picked up the phone when he heard a voice from the other end. "Actually, it's just a small misunderstanding between us. There's not much conflict between us. I think we can resolve this misunderstanding. I would like to express my apologies for the previous incident and will compensate Mr. Ren. There's no misunderstanding. Your father will sit in the car and let me hit him with the truck. After that, this matter will be over," Renbochin said faintly. "Mr. Ren, I can compensate you for what you did in the past. Moreover, both of us are responsible for this matter," Wang Xuanli said. "Where are you now?" Renbochin suddenly asked. Wang Xuanli paused for a moment. "Mr. Ren. If you want to find me, you can come to Tan Province." "It's too far," Renbochin said, feeling a little conflicted. "Although I would like to meet Mr. Ren to resolve this matter, I still have some matters to attend to at the moment. If there is a suitable opportunity in the future, I would still be willing to befriend Mr. Ren. Before that, I wonder if Mr. Ren could release my daughter first. After I kill your father, if you are willing to be friends with me, I don't mind." Renbochin couldn't be bothered with him anymore. He immediately hung up the phone and sent a message to Qin. "Can you find a hacker to locate a person?" "Qin. Who is it?" "Renbochin. What happened?" "Find someone's location." Wang Ji, the founder of Huaneng Energy, was probably at Hong Kong's Wenhua Hotel last night. And his son. Wang Ji only had one descendant. At least, he only had one descendant that was publicly known. As for whether he had any secret illegitimate children or whether he would cause a commotion among the rich and powerful, Renbochin wasn't interested at all. According to Renbachian's thinking, as long as the other party appeared in public, it shouldn't be difficult for a skilled hacker to locate his location through various means. Although it wasn't easy to find a skilled hacker, it was still much easier than finding Wang Ji. Someone told me to tell you, leave some leeway in life. I will give you an explanation for this matter. I want a location. Renbachian curled his lips. Why didn't the other party think of leaving some leeway? Was he regretting it now? It was too late. If it weren't for the Empress, even if he was a manual expert, it would be difficult for him to escape death in the car. All right, I will try. Wait for my news. After putting down the phone, Renbachian lay on the bed and continued to sleep. After 3 hours, Chen Qing sent a message. I found a supposedly very skilled hacker. He said he will give you news in an hour. Less than 20 minutes later, Chen Qing sent another message. Wang Ji is at Hong Kong's Wenhua Hotel and hasn't left. As for Wang Xunli, he is in Tanzhou. Renbachian looked at the message and didn't expect Wang Ji to still be at Hong Kong's Wenhua Hotel. Was this confirmation that he wouldn't look for him? And that Wang Xunli was actually in Tanzhou as well. Ask him to pay attention to the other party's information and inform me immediately if there are any changes. Renbachian replied and then shouted, Your Majesty. I have found him. He is in Hong Kong. If we drive there, it will take 18 hours, and we will definitely be discovered. As for the high-speed rail, it will take 8 hours, but we will definitely be discovered. In any case, no matter how he went, he would definitely be discovered if he wanted to reach Hong Kong in a short period of time. Unless the Empress brought him along and rode on the clouds. However, even the Empress wouldn't be able to travel a distance of 1,500 kilometers. Let's go, kill him, and then go back, the Empress said as she appeared in front of the door. He still has a son. If we don't get rid of him, I'm afraid there will be trouble in the future, Renbachian said. Kill them one by one. The Empress's answer was very simple and consistent with her usual style. No matter what the other party's intentions were or how many people there were, they would just kill them one by one. I like Your Majesty's decisiveness in killing. Renbachian tilted his head and smiled at the Empress. The Empress wrinkled her nose, snorted, and went back to change her clothes. Boo-hoo. The girl on the ground couldn't help but struggle when she heard their conversation. Be good and listen to me. When the time comes, I will send you to reunite with your family so that you won't be lonely down there, Renbachian said gently. The girl struggled even harder, and tears flowed down her cheeks uncontrollably. A moment later, the Empress and Renbachian arrived at the foot of the mountain and flagged down a car. The Empress appeared directly in front of the car, and the driver had no choice but to stop. How much? I want the car. Renbachian knocked on the window and said. Crazy, the driver scolded. The next second, Renbachian grabbed him by the collar and pulled him out. How much did you buy this car for? Renbachian continued to ask. 230,000 yuan. The driver's face turned ashen. I'll give you 250,000 yuan. Renbachian took out his phone and saw a series of messages. Renbachian ignored them, forcibly transferred 250,000 yuan to the driver, and switched off his phone. You may leave. Renbachian threw the dumbfounded driver, who didn't know whether to be ecstatic or sullen. He drove more than 200 meters back to the road up the mountain, threw the girl in the bushes into the car, and drove all the way south. In order to prevent being discovered too early, Renbachian even found a small shop and bought 2 masks to wear. The Empress wore Tang Sangs, and Renbachian wore Zhu Beiji's. No one said that Zhu Beiji didn't want to eat Tang Sang's meat. Renbachian laughed mischievously. His voice sounded a little muffled behind the mask. It wasn't illegal to wear a mask while driving, but it was easy to get beaten up with a pig's head, and it was a little stuffy. less than an hour after Renbachian left, the driver that he had thrown onto the road was found by the people from the Messier 87 department. After all, it was easy to get hold of Renbachian's bank transfer information. After checking the direction in which the car was heading, Yang Sen's face turned green. Chapter 507. It seems that he really won't stop until he's dead. One of them was Wang Ji, and the other was his son, Wang Xuanli. At this time, both of them were frowning. This person's identity is a bit strange. On the surface, he looks like a young man who got rich by chance, but he was able to swagger back after killing the entire Jin family. Now, he's also so fearless. There's a big problem with this. After all, our Wang family is not a small force like the Jin family. Even if he has something more important than oil in his hands, it is impossible for the people above to tolerate him so much. He is not a fool. If he dares to do this, he must be quite confident that the country will not do anything to him. If you know what he is relying on, you should be able to understand. Wang Xuanli said in a deep voice. This was also the thing that he could not understand the most. Where did the other party get the courage from? What was the other party relying on? He dared to touch the top 100 richest people in the country. No matter what, you just need to remember that only the living have value, Wang Ji said unhurriedly. No matter what the other party was relying on, as long as the other party was dead, he would have no value. Without value, naturally, no one would care how he died. Then the baby. Wang Xuanli hesitated. It depends on fate. If the other party is willing to talk, then it's okay. But the other party has no intention of talking at all. What happens to the baby depends on her luck, Wang Ji said decisively. I contacted the police, but it was suppressed. Humph. You don't have to worry about this matter. Wang Ji snorted coldly. Wang Xuanli hesitated for a moment and finally sighed. The baby is my daughter. With the Wang family's status and the kidnapping, no matter where the police were, they would not neglect it. But at this time, it was suppressed by someone. It could be seen that there was a problem. He did not know who intervened in this matter. The baby is also my granddaughter. But now the other party obviously does not want to talk, and even the police have suppressed it. This matter can't be solved by ordinary means, Wang Ji said in a deep voice. Wang Xuanli still had a sentence in his heart. Father, you chose the wrong method from the beginning. After hanging up the phone, Wang Ji pondered for a while and dialed a number. He said respectfully, Old Su, do you have any clues? I can't help you with this. Take care, the old man on the other end of the phone said. Wang Ji's heart trembled. For someone of Elder Su's status to say something like that, it seems like the person behind that person must have reached the heavens. You should go into hiding for now and see if there's any chance to turn things around, Elder Su added before hanging up the phone. Wang Ji's expression changed as he held the phone. At this moment, he really regretted it. He thought that it was just a dog that bit people, so he would just kill it. He didn't expect that the dog was actually Sun Wukong. However, he soon gritted his teeth. Since other methods didn't work, he might as well continue down this path. For me to be able to live to this day and sit in this position, I didn't grow up eating plain rice. Following his soft call, a young man pushed open the door and walked in. Boss. Have you contacted him? Wang Ji asked. I've contacted him. He's a Vietnamese, and it said that he's quite strong. However, their asking price was very high, at least twice the normal price. The main thing is that it's very risky to enter the country, the young man said in a low voice. Give it to them. Wang Ji leaned back in his chair and said. Give them 3 days' time. I'll contact them again. If they can save the baby, give them double the price. Understood. Pour me another cup of tea. After saying that, Wang Ji leaned back in his chair. The other party was very strong, but no matter how strong they were still afraid of bullets. As for what would happen after the other party died, that was a matter for the future. The other party's death was better than his own death. In his opinion, since he had already used external forces, the matter should be resolved just like that. Professional matters should be handled by professionals, and naturally, there would be professionals for killing people. However, he still felt a little uneasy in his heart. What the bodyguard behind the other party said that day made him feel a little incredulous. At night, his plans were suddenly disrupted. Mr. Wang, there are some matters that require your assistance in the investigation. Please come with us. Can't I do it here? Wang Ji asked calmly as he faced the sudden appearance of a few policemen. In his heart, he was thinking that someone was going to make a move on him. Although your identity is special, no matter who you are, you have to go to the police station to assist in the investigation. Wang Ji and Wang Xunli are being detained for suspected economic crimes. Ren Baqian turned on his phone after arriving in Shenzhen. He was stunned when he saw the text message. No wonder there weren't any interceptions along the way. He was already prepared to be intercepted. He didn't expect Yang Sen to actually do this again. Ren Baqian's facial expression changed. The previous one was different from this one. The previous one was just a small fry and didn't affect him much. Naturally, he didn't care about it. However, this time, Wang Ji was courting death. Let's cross the sea. Ren Baqian switched off his phone after sending another text message. He then turned around and said to the Empress. The Empress glanced at the girl who was tied up in the back seat and asked, "She brought it too? Let me handle it." Ren Baqian drove the car to the suburbs, took out a shovel from the trunk, and dug a hole in the ground. Soon after, he pulled out the terrified girl who knew what he was doing and kept struggling out of the car. Don't be afraid. There's no pain in heaven, and you won't be alone, Ren Baqian said gently. Ren Baqian said gently. He didn't want to extinguish such a fresh and tender flower, but he also didn't want to leave an enemy behind. After Ren Baqian finished speaking, he raised his hand and slapped the back of the girl's head. Bang! A moment later, Ren Baqian filled the hole and patted the soil to make it solid. I feel like I'm the antagonist boss. I feel a little guilty. Ren Baqian felt a little regretful. After all, he had just extinguished a flower bud. The Empress rolled her eyes. She didn't feel anything about his nonsensical moaning. Wasn't killing people as natural as eating and drinking? The Empress carried Ren Baqian and landed on the other side of the river more than 100 meters in front of her in just a few flashes. The surface of the river behind her seemed to have exploded and shot up into the sky, attracting the attention of many people. However, very few people saw the Empress's silhouette. Only a young couple by the river looked at the two people who suddenly appeared in front of them in a daze. They almost lost their ability to think. Good evening. Ren Baqian chuckled as he was carried by the Empress. He didn't care how strange it was to be carried by a woman at this moment. In the next second, the two of them disappeared in front of the young couple. After a long time, the young couple screamed, "Ghost," and scrambled away. At the Hong Kong police headquarters, Yang Sen stood in a room. In front of him was a piece of glass, and he could see the scene on the other side. At this moment, Wang Ji was sitting there. No one was giving him a statement. He was the only one in the entire interrogation room, but he didn't feel anxious at all. Instead, he closed his eyes and rested. On the other hand, Yang Sen was thinking about the content of the phone call he had just received. This is the remains of the corpse of a god. The first sentence almost scared him to the point that he stopped breathing. Of course, it's definitely not what you think. It's just that in the eyes of humans, this person could already be considered a god when he was alive. The time of death should be about half a month, but there's no decay. There's a very strange substance protecting his corpse. However, this substance is decreasing with the passage of time. According to estimates, it will disappear in about a year. The reason why I say this is the corpse of a god is mainly because of the thing contained in this corpse. His DNA is different from humans. Generally speaking, the more complex a creature is, the more junk DNA it carries. It is precisely this uncoded, useless DNA that helps higher organisms evolve into complex organisms. However, the amount of junk DNA in this body was much less, which was different from the conclusion of the current research. I'm guessing that this corpse was already evolving in another direction when it was alive, and this evolution direction is more pure. Even now, Yang-sen could not forget how he felt when he received the call. Even now, his heart was still trembling. Boom! Just as he was recalling, the wall beside him was suddenly smashed, and two people appeared in the room. I hit the wrong wall. It's a little crooked. Over there. Ren Bachien looked around, pointed in the direction of the glass, and spoke. He acted as if he didn't see Yang-sen, who was right in front of him. Voila! The glass was instantly shattered. A red shadow passed through the room and smashed the wall on the other side. Chapter 508. When Wang Ji regained consciousness, he immediately realized that he was being dragged by the collar by someone. Looking at the skyscrapers below him, his face turned ashen. Were these the two people he wanted to deal with? Were they really human? Could a human leap tens of meters and run up a vertical wall? Could a human appear tens of meters away in an instant, just like in the mythological novels? From his angle, he could see the figure in red when he turned his head. He could also see Ren Bachien, whom the Empress was carrying in her other hand. He wanted to struggle, but he didn't even have the strength to move his fingers. Hong Kong was very small, only about 80 square kilometers. It was less than 10 kilometers from one end to the other, not to mention from the police headquarters. To the Empress, this distance was covered in a flash. In less than 10 minutes, the three of them landed at the place where they left. After landing, Ren Bachien moved his muscles and bones. After all, it wasn't a comfortable thing to be dragged by someone and blown by the cold wind. Then, he turned to look at Wang Ji, who was paralyzed on the ground, and asked, "Are you surprised?" "Very surprised." "Who are you? Are you really human?" Wang Ji's face was pale and his forehead was covered in sweat. He knew the identity of these two people, but he couldn't believe that they were the people he wanted to deal with. "Didn't you already know?" Ren Bachien said as he twisted his neck. "I haven't seen someone so bold in a long time. I can't hide the fact that I was captured by you. I can guarantee that I won't seek revenge on you. If you have other requests, I can also satisfy them." Wang Ji suppressed his trembling voice and said. "Do you think I ran all the way from Shanghai to Hong Kong just to rob you?" Ren Bachien squatted in front of him and asked with a smile. "You can't hide it. If I die, you will be in big trouble," Wang Ji begged in a low voice. "I don't need to hide it. Someone will help me hide it. As for big trouble, it's nothing." "You overestimate yourself," Ren Bachien said. "Be a good person in your next life. Good people will be rewarded. For example, I help an old lady cross the road when I have nothing better to do. Bad things never happen to me." After finishing his words, he ignored the other party's reaction and slapped Wang Ji's head. The force of a few hundred kilograms made Wang Ji spurt blood from his mouth and nose in an instant. Next, they continued to dig holes and bury them. Ha! Just as Ren Bachien poked an object with the crowbar, he suddenly realized that the object moved. It was the girl from before. An illusion. Ren Bachien had just thought of this. Logically speaking, that slap should have killed him. He was confident in his own strength. Even if his palm didn't kill him, He should be dead after being buried for more than an hour, right? However, just as he was thinking about this, the girl's body moved again. He really didn't die. Ren Boqian was astonished. He didn't die from his own palm strike, and he didn't die after being buried for so long. This thought emerged in Ren Boqian's mind. He jumped into the pit and brushed off the soil on the girl's face. He stretched out his hand and found that she was indeed still breathing. Or is this girl really not destined to die? Ren Boqian squatted on the ground and rubbed the stubble on his chin. Your Majesty, that one didn't die. Oh, the Empress replied nonchalantly. Kill him again. Ren Boqian was a little hesitant. Killing someone once wasn't enough, and he still had to kill someone a second time. He couldn't bear to do it. After all, she was still an underage girl. Previously, he already felt a little guilty. If he were to kill her again, it wouldn't be justifiable. Furthermore, he had recently come into contact with that naggy monk, Su Wen. He had also started to pay attention to these metaphysical things. This matter made him ponder over it a little more. At this moment, that trace of guilt in his heart sprouted in his heart and weighed down on one end of the scale. Keep her, bring her back to Dao and let her fend for herself, Ren Boqian muttered. He pulled the girl out of the pit and threw Wang Ji into it. One pit for each radish, one goes in and one comes out, Ren Boqian muttered as he filled the pit with soil again. He held the girl's leg and shook it for a long time before throwing her into the back seat of the car. Your Majesty, are you tired? Ren Boqian threw the shovel back into the trunk, clapped his hands and asked. The Empress couldn't be bothered with him. It's really inappropriate for Your Majesty to follow me around for such a small matter. Later, arrange some people here so that it'll be easier to arrange things in the future, Ren Boqian said as he sat beside the Empress. All right. The Empress nodded her head. Your Majesty, please choose the people who are tight-lipped, loyal, strong, and able to accept new things. At the very least, they should be able to learn and understand the weapons and equipment on Earth so that they won't be shot down by machine guns. That would be a joke. Ren Boqian leaned back with his hands behind his back. When the time comes, I'll pick some people for you. You can choose from among them, the Empress said faintly. All right. Ren Boqian nodded his head and smiled. Actually, it's still more relaxing here. I don't have to consider too many problems. Even killing someone requires me to ponder for a long time. It's not like Tianjin Basin where people beat their brains out every day. You're too soft-hearted, the Empress said coldly. Ren Boqian tilted his head, thought for a while, and said, I'm soft-hearted. It's all right. The Empress ignored him. In her opinion, he was still a little soft-hearted. Even though he could come up with all kinds of excuses for killing those people from Tianjin Basin that sounded reasonable, he still couldn't hide it. He was still a little soft-hearted and wanted to kill fewer people. However, this wasn't too bad, so she just let him be. He wasn't like Li Yuanzhu, who didn't kill anyone and was considered soft-hearted. Ren Boqian didn't have the strength to look down on all living things. Killing a few people could reduce the number of people he had to kill. Putting on a ferocious appearance could reduce a lot of trouble. Most of the time, trouble was equivalent to death. Even though it wasn't a very smart way of doing things, it wasn't bad either. Woo! A soft sound came from the car. Ren Boqian turned his head and saw that the girl was sitting up in the back seat. She was actually awake. She didn't run away or scream. She just sat there in a daze. Ren Boqian was a little curious. This girl actually had such a reaction after coming back to life. He got up and opened the car door to take a look. He saw that the girl was sitting there in a daze. She didn't speak or move. Ren Boqian stretched out his palm and waved it in front of her eyes. The girl's eyes moved, turned her head to look at him, and then lowered her head to look at her muddy palm. Is she stupid? Renbochen's mind was filled with a series of question marks. Was she stupid because of his slap? Or did the lack of oxygen in the soil hurt her brain? Or was it both? However, he couldn't be bothered to think about her. He shouted at the Empress, "Your Majesty, let's go. There's still one more." Along the way to Tanzhou, Renbochen used the rearview mirror to observe the girl from time to time. She was still in the same daze as before. Occasionally, she would look at the Empress, look at Renbochen, or lower her head to look at her palms. She would touch her face with her hands and pat the mud off. "Do you hate me?" Renbochen casually asked as he drove. "Hate me?" The girl dragged out her tone and asked doubtfully. "Your name?" "Name?" She seems to be really stupid. Renbochen used the rearview mirror to observe her for a long time. He felt that she wasn't pretending. At least, the dullness in her eyes didn't seem to be fake. If a 16 or 17-year-old girl like her could deceive him, then it could only be said that all women were born to be drama queens. That's good. It's good to be a little stupid. Fools live much better than ordinary people, especially this kind. Renbochen smiled faintly. After driving for 8 hours, Renbochen was finally stuck in a traffic jam as he approached the highway junction of Tanzhou. Or rather, the other party had been waiting here for a long time. "Mr. Ren, let's go back to Shanghai." If he continued, it would be too much. "I can guarantee that he won't have the chance to trouble you again." Yang Sen knocked on Renbochen's car window and said. After which, he saw the girl sitting in the back seat. Astonishment flashed across his eyes, but he also felt slightly gratified. In the end, the person in front of him didn't kill the girl. If it was only Wang Ji who died, it would make sense. After all, it was Wang Jixian who had gone overboard. Even if Renbochen didn't make a move, the nation would deal with him. Moreover, Renbochen was a vengeful person. The fact that Wang Baobao didn't die made him admire Renbochen a lot. At the very least, Renbochen had a conscience. Chapter 509. In the end, Renbochen wasn't able to kill Wang Xunli. With Yang Sen blocking his way and his promise that Wang Xunli wouldn't have a chance to retaliate, Renbochen finally took a step back after burying the culprit, Wang Ji. It was impossible to say that he wasn't discovered on his way to Hong Kong. However, he wasn't stopped, which meant that he had already indulged him once. After all, Wang Ji had used methods that exceeded the rules, so his death wasn't unjust. At this point, it seemed unnecessary to shed all pretense of cordiality and kill Wang Xunli. Especially since Wang Xunli was already under control and Yang Sen had made a promise, he wouldn't have a chance to retaliate. The words, "no chance," were very interesting. If he wouldn't retaliate, then someone was suppressing him. However, the words, "no chance," explained some problems. Seeing this, Renbochen finally took a step back and returned to Shanghai. After all, he had been on the run for more than 20 hours, and he felt that it was quite tiring. There was still a fool that he hadn't handed over. Now, Renbochen was sure that this little girl had really become a fool. Yang Sen's words were easy to understand, but she didn't respond at all. According to Renbochen, this was a good thing. At least she could survive and live a more relaxed life than most people as a fool. He wouldn't have to kill the same person a second time. After returning to the villa, Renbochen first went online to check Wang Xunli's information. Indeed, he had been arrested for economic crimes. Combined with Yang Sen's words, he probably wouldn't have a chance to get out. Of the two people from the Wang family, one was dead and the other was injured. Huaneng Energy would experience a shock, but it wouldn't collapse. Therefore, the impact wouldn't be too great. However, Wang Ji and Wang Xuanli were arrested one after another, and Wang Ji died inexplicably. This would still cause a shock in society, and at the same time, many rich people would be vigilant and inquire about what had happened. After all, a rich person of the same level as them had fallen just like that. Many people felt sympathy for the death of a rabbit and were afraid that they would end up like him one day. Very soon, someone discovered a person who wouldn't have attracted much attention, Ren Baqin. Although the witnesses at the scene of the car accident, the hospital, and the Hong Kong police station had their mouths sealed, some news still reached the ears of these people. This made Ren Baqin a mark in many people's hearts. At the same time, they were also somewhat suspicious. Who exactly was Ren Baqin? How much of what was said was true and how much was false? Soon, a video of the scene of the accident fell into the hands of some people. Everyone was shocked when they saw the scene. Did this really happen in reality? Ren Baqin slept comfortably. When he woke up, the first thing he did was to take a look at the girl who was thrown into an empty room. She still had that blank look on her face. After the meal, the doorbell rang again. Ren Baqin opened the door and saw that it was young senator. He raised his eyebrows and asked, "Is there anything else?" "A little." "Can I go in?" Yang Sen pointed inside. When Yang Sen entered the house and saw the Empress sitting on the sofa, he cautiously greeted her. After all, the strength of the Empress could easily strike fear in people, especially when they were face to face. It was like a man and a tiger being locked in a cage. "Have a seat." "What's the matter?" Ren Baqin pointed to the side. After Yang Sen sat down, he said, "The limbs in your fridge, I haven't settled the score with you yet." Speaking of this, Ren Baqin raised his eyebrows. "Private rights are sacred and inviolable. You can't snatch my things just because you have the support of the nation, right?" "Wang Ji's corpse has been found," Yang Sen said. His meaning was obvious. This matter had been suppressed. These are two different matters. Ren Baqin sneered. "What does his corpse have to do with me? I was hired to kill someone the night before yesterday and was almost run over by a truck. Tell me, what do you want?" Yang Sen asked helplessly. "I want 1,000 of those skunk bombs," Ren Baqin said. When the Empress heard this, her expression immediately became unnatural. She had experienced the power of these things. Just the thought of 1,000 of them was terrifying. "Okay." Yang Sen agreed readily. Ren Baqin's expression relaxed a little. In fact, for Earth, the corpse of a spirit-will expert wasn't something that 1,000 skunk bombs could compare to. Nuclear warheads were more like it. However, the nation definitely wouldn't give him such a powerful weapon, and he didn't have anything else that he wanted. Similarly, he didn't want to give people the illusion that they could get something from him without paying any price. "What do you want now? Tell me." Ren Baqin leaned back and sank into the sofa. "Is that corpse the spirit-will expert you mentioned before?" Yang Sen took out a recording pen as he spoke. In fact, he didn't have to take it out, but this action made Ren Baqin feel more comfortable. After all, it was better to have things in front of him than to be kept in the dark. "Yes." Ren Baqin nodded. "According to our tests, his lifespan should have reached 130 years, but his cell activity is similar to that of a person in their 30s or 40s. How did this happen, 130 years old?" The Empress was astonished. "Based on our tests, yes." "Is it accurate?" "It should be accurate. After all, we can roughly determine the age of an item from hundreds of millions of years ago," Ren Baqin said. "What's wrong?" Ting Yu became famous 40 years ago as a genius. Everyone thought that he was only in his 30s at that time, and many people thought that he had hope of reaching a higher level. "I didn't expect him to be 90 years old." The Empress sneered. "Everyone has been deceived. Renbochin had a strange look on his face as he had never heard of such a thing. A 90-year-old man still hid his age and pretended to be a young genius. Ting Yu was really in a bind. A spirit will expert would be respected no matter where he went. For him to actually do such a thing showed how obsessed he was with showing off. Of course, a 90-year-old spirit will expert and a 30-year-old spirit will expert were definitely different in the eyes of many people. After all, the latter had much greater potential. Even so, this person was really in a bind. We have detected a substance in his body that can maintain cell activity and delay cell death. We speculate that this substance has the effect of removing free radicals and providing energy. If there is progress in this area of research, I don't need to explain its importance. Mr. Ren should be able to understand, Yang Sen said. This was also the reason why he came here. When the results of the tests on this corpse were out, even the higher-ups began to pay attention to it. Renbochin was also very interested. No one could be indifferent to prolonging their lifespan. It should be the spirit, Renbochin said after some thought. As far as he knew, the biggest difference between a spirit will expert and an earth will expert was the use of the spirit. If the lifespan of an earth will expert was slightly longer than that of an ordinary person, it was because of their physical fitness. The lifespan of a spirit will expert was much longer than that of an earth will expert, almost double the lifespan. This should be related to the spirit. It should be something similar to the spirit, but there are some differences. It is more similar to the primordial spirit in novels. It can communicate with heaven and earth and can also condense heaven-grade weapons. Renbochin explained to Yang Sen's puzzlement. Heaven-grade weapons. The spirit and the vital energy of heaven and earth combine to condense a type of weapon. However, this is too far away for you, Renbochin said faintly. Following Renbochin's words, Yang Sen watched helplessly as a metal chain emerged from Renbochin's head. It twisted a few times like a snake before finally twisting into an S shape and then an M shape. Yang Sen stared at the top of Renbochin's head and said, "This is..." Ha! Renbochin was stunned. He stretched his hand toward his head, and the metal chain was about to retract. However, the Empress's movements were faster than it. She pulled it out and wrapped it around her hand. Then, a spear covered in golden veins emerged from Renbochin's temple and pierced toward the Empress. The Empress's face turned cold. She stretched out her hand and flicked it. The spear immediately let out a clear sound and retracted back into Renbochin's head. Yang Sen's eyes widened. He looked at the metal chain that was wrapped around the Empress's hand and asked hesitantly, "Can I touch it?" "No." Renbochin promptly rejected. Did she think that it was a dog chain that anyone could touch? This is a heaven-grade weapon. As long as the person is alive, the heaven-grade weapon will exist. If the person is dead, the heaven-grade weapon will die, Renbochin said faintly. Yang Sen was a little surprised. According to their understanding, Renbochin's strength was similar to that of the selected experts. He should be at the man-will level and was at most a little stronger than those experts. However, according to what he said just now, this thing could only be condensed when one had reached the so-called spirit level, right? How did Renbochin improve so quickly? One had to know that after the selected experts broke through, it was difficult for them to improve. As he thought about it, Yang Sen took out a square plate from his bag and a handle at the bottom. In the middle of the square plate was a screen. After fiddling with it for a while, he aimed the back of the square plate at Renbochin and the number 158 immediately appeared on the screen. Then, he aimed it at the Empress. That thing immediately emitted a green smoke. "What's this?" Renbochin frowned and asked. "This is a small thing that was just created in the laboratory. I wanted to demonstrate it to the two of you, but I didn't expect it to spoil." Yang Sen laughed dryly. It can detect how much energy a person has in their body. Ordinary adult men have 10 to 15 energy, special forces soldiers have 20 to 30 energy, and experts who have just broken through to the manual level should have 70 to 100 energy. As for Mr. Ren, your energy is 158. The upper limit of this thing is 1500 energy. As you can see, Miss Chi has exceeded the upper limit. As Yang-sen spoke, his heart was in turmoil. This detector had a very special calculation method, and he didn't understand the specifics. However, he understood one thing. What did 1500 energy mean? This was already equivalent to a human-shaped nuclear bomb. It wasn't an adjective, it was a real human-shaped nuclear bomb. Chapter 5:10. The detector was just a small interlude. Renbachien and Yang Sen's topic returned to Ting Yu's severed limb. As time was too short, not many things had been discovered so far. However, the most important thing had already been revealed to everyone. Since ancient times, humans had never been so close to immortality. Even if their lifespan was doubled, countless people would be willing to exchange their entire family fortune for it. Not to mention the huge impact it would have on society. Now, a person studied for a total of 13 years from primary school to graduation from university. In society, they could work for another 35 years. If they studied for 20 years, they could only work for 28 years. After experiencing a short peak, they would start to go downhill when they had the most experience. 13 to 20 years was too short for current technology. They might not even be able to reach the peak in one aspect. If a person's lifespan was doubled, then a student who studied for 40 years would be able to reach an extremely high level of attainment in one aspect. Furthermore, after working for over 50 years, they would be able to maintain their peak for 20 to 30 years. If there was such a day, the entire society would be filled with all kinds of elites and talents in various fields. A long lifespan would allow countless people to devote their lives to their hobbies without having to weigh the gains and losses in a short period of time. The speed of technological advancement could be increased by 5 times, 10 times, or even more. The technological level that originally required 1,000 years to achieve could be achieved in a short 100 years. It could be said that there would be new changes every day. That would be a beautiful utopia. People would have more time to pursue their ideals and not for money. After all, in modern society, due to the oppression of life, people had no choice but to focus on how to earn money to support their families at a very young age. And if their lifespan was extended by a lot, young people would have more time to do all kinds of things for the sake of their ideals and interests without caring for returns. Just thinking about that kind of world would make people feel wonderful and excited. The Empress didn't understand what kind of changes would happen, but Renbachien could imagine it and could understand the excitement that Yang-sen revealed. Don't expect too much for the time being. This kind of thing isn't that easy to research. Renbachien wasn't pouring cold water on young senator. In fact, he also had a lot of expectations. However, it was hard to say to what extent the current technology on Earth could be researched. This is already a straight road. At the end of the road is Rome. What we have to do next is to take one step at a time and keep moving forward, Yang-sen said. He already had a direction, and everything was in front of him. Next, he just had to work hard in this direction. It wasn't that he was clueless, but he had a very clear goal. He believed that even if he couldn't see it, his son could. Renbachien told Yang-sen everything he knew about spirit world experts. The Empress would also occasionally add a few words to make Yang-sen's trip worthwhile. However, before Yang-sen left, he made a request. It was for the various materials in the blessed land. After all, there were many things that did not seem to be related to each other on the surface, but they could allow one to gain a deeper understanding of the blessed enclave, and they might be able to easily solve some of the difficult problems one might encounter in research. Renbachien had brought too little with him. If it was before, Yang-sen would not be anxious. However, after obtaining the corpse, the entire research institute became excited, and so did he. Furthermore, it was very likely that the Messier 87 department and the laboratory would continue to expand, and more talents would be transferred to them. This was good news for him. Regarding this, Renbochin still had the same attitude. He would use things in exchange. Although he didn't mind contributing to this matter, he didn't want to do so. Furthermore, no one would recognize his contributions in the future. On the contrary, it was better for both sides to maintain this kind of equal cooperation. Even if the value of the things that Earth offered was lower, such as some cheap things like skunk bombs in exchange for the corpse of a spirit wool expert, he could still accept it. After staying on Earth for another day, Renbochin brought the Empress and the silly girl back to Deo. Your Majesty, take a rest first. I will see if those people have returned. After Renbochin returned to the room he was in before he left, he looked at the fool beside him who still had a lifeless look on her face and was looking at the surroundings with a curious gaze. He thought for a while and said, I'll take this girl with me first. After leaving the room, Renbochin threw the silly girl to the guard and asked him to find a place to settle her down. Renbochin was prepared to keep this girl for the time being. When he returned to Deo, he would bring her back to Lawn City and settle her down in a place like the Beast Park to do chores within her capabilities. Renbochin felt that even if she recovered her memory one day, it wouldn't cause any trouble. After all, how much could a 16 or 17-year-old girl know? Furthermore, in this world that was full of danger, she might not even be able to walk out of Tianjing Basin by herself. In a few days, she would be sold to a brothel. However, Renbochin didn't want to take this risk, and it was most appropriate to place her not far from him. After the guard took Wang Baobao away, Renbochin looked for Gong Zheng and asked, Are they back yet? Renbochin was naturally asking about those practitioners who went to spy on them. Gong Zheng looked up at the position of the moon and replied, Not yet. It has been more than a day and a night. If there are no accidents, it should be about time. Inform me when they are back, Renbochin said. Under the moonlight, Zhang Chongkong was carrying a man in his 30s in one hand and a long saber in the other as he ran. At this moment, his embroidered clothes were tattered beyond recognition, his hair was disheveled, and his face was stained with blood. He didn't have any of his previous elegance. A few hundred meters behind him, two silhouettes appeared and disappeared like ghosts. Chief, put me down. Green Ghost and White Ghost definitely won't be able to catch up to you. The man he was carrying had a lot of blood stains on his body. There were also 2 arrows shot through his body, one of which penetrated his abdomen and the other through his chest. This person was the warehouse supervisor of the Golden Ring residence, Zhang Qiang. The others who went with him were nowhere to be seen. Talk less. I can definitely bring you back. Zhang Chongkong gritted his teeth. Chief, it doesn't matter if I die, but the entire Golden Ring residence needs you to support it, Zhang Qiang said weakly. How can I face everyone in the residence if I go back alone with 5 people? Zhang Chongkong laughed bitterly. He felt a chill in his heart when he thought about the scouting mission. He didn't expect that there would be a spy in this group. All the practitioners who came from the south would bring experts from the same sect as them to prove their loyalty. This person was no exception. No one expected him to be a spy. Using the head of an Earth-will expert from the same sect as a price to sneak in as a spy, what kind of price and decisiveness was this? Just thinking about it made Zhang Chongkong feel a chill in his heart. It was precisely because of this person that this group of people directly fell into the other party's trap. Nearly half of the experts died on the spot. The others scattered and escaped, but some of them died under the pursuit of the other party's experts. Among the 5 people from the Golden Ring residence, the inner supervisor, Su Ku, and the deputy supervisor, Lu Jing, died on the spot. The outer supervisor, Ling Siquan, was blocking the enemy for Zhang Chongkong. Currently, the green ghost and white ghost were still behind, and Ling Ziquan was nowhere to be seen. As for the spirit will expert, Zhou Cheng, who was in charge of the scouting mission, he had long been entangled. Not only did the other party have spirit will experts, but there were also two of them. Chapter 5:11. Under the night sky, two figures covered in blood hurriedly ran to Jiangbei City and landed on the city wall. They turned around and looked at the darkness behind them. Then, they sat there paralyzed and gasped for breath. Here, they were finally safe. Who are you? The two of them jumped onto the city wall and immediately alerted the guards and patrolling winged cavalry warriors. I'm Shan Yu from Qingjiang sect. I was ordered by Sir Ren to investigate the Wang estuary. Inform Sir Ren that we were ambushed and suffered heavy casualties. Only the two of us escaped. There were people chasing us before, but they retreated when we were close by. The soldiers on the city wall didn't dare to delay and quickly arranged for someone to inform the guards. 3 patrolling winged cavalry warriors jumped off the wall and rushed into the darkness. They returned without success after a while. Ambushed. Only 2 of them managed to escape. Ren Baqian had already laid down in his room to rest when he suddenly heard the news from the guards. He hurriedly put on his clothes and went out. Where are they? On the southern wall. I've already sent someone to bring them here, Gong Zheng said beside Ren Baqian. Ren Baqian's face was gloomy. How could they be ambushed with more than 30 Earth Will experts in Zhuqiang? Furthermore, only 2 people escaped. Did they just stand there and let others kill them? What about Zhuqiang? After walking around the courtyard a few times, Ren Baqian's gloomy face gradually calmed down. It seemed that the other party was well prepared. When he and the others arrived at Jiangbei, they were already prepared and set up a trap for him to fall into. Fortunately, he had arranged for these people to investigate. If the winged cavalry had gone, there would have been many casualties even if they won. Even so, he still felt the pinch as these people were still very useful to him. Putting aside the idea of the embroidered uniform guards, he still counted on these people to appease the people. After all, they were the local tyrants of Tianjing Basin, and it would be much easier for them to appease the people. However, there were so many casualties now. How could he not feel the pinch? After waiting for a while, someone informed him, "Sir, they are here." "Bring them to the front hall," Ren Baqian said as he walked toward the front hall. By the time he arrived, he already saw 2 people covered in blood and injuries standing there. "Sir Ren, we were ambushed and suffered heavy casualties. Only the 2 of us managed to escape." One of them stepped forward upon seeing Ren Baqian enter, and his tone was filled with anger and grief. "Sir Ren, please avenge us." Ren Baqian glanced at the 2 of them. He had some impression of the person who spoke. He was an expert from the south. Because of his pair of peach blossom eyes, Ren Baqian had a deep impression of him. After all, a big man with an unshaven beard and a pair of watery peach blossom eyes looked strange no matter how one looked at it. "What's your name?" Ren Baqian asked coldly. "Sir Ren, I'm Shan Yu from Qingjiang sect," the man replied. Ren Baqian nodded and asked, "What exactly happened? How did you get ambushed? How many people did they have? Where is Zhuqiang? There's a traitor among us. He lured us into the ambush." Shan Yu's expression was twisted and ferocious as he gritted his teeth. "Who is it?" Ren Baqian asked sternly, his entire body overflowing with murderous intent. The ferocious look on Shan Yu's face disappeared and was replaced by a smile. His figure flashed, and he slapped his palm toward Ren Baqian's forehead. "It's me." Ren Baqian's expression changed drastically. Shan Yu was only 3 meters away from him. For an Earth Will expert, this was a distance that could be covered in the blink of an eye. Renbachien could only watch helplessly as the hand got closer and closer to him. He could even feel the wind blowing against his face. He could imagine what would happen to him if this palm hit him. He definitely wouldn't look any better than Sakuma. His brain was warning his whole body, but his body couldn't move at all. He finally realized that the human brain's reaction was much faster than the body's, especially in a life-and-death crisis like this. However, it was useless. Even though countless thoughts were going through his mind, his body couldn't keep up with the current reaction. F***ck. I was too careless. Renbachien gritted his teeth. Who did I offend? Why am I always getting assassinated? As he was thinking about this, he saw from the corner of his eye that a man covered in blood not far away from him almost at the same time as Shan Yu. The man raised his hands, and between the gaps of his hands were 6 daggers. He blocked Gongjing, who realized that something was amiss and was rushing over. Courting death. Gongjing bellowed anxiously. If Renbachien was assassinated, he would be finished. He gathered all the strength in his body, completely disregarding the daggers in his opponent's hands, and threw a punch at Shan Yu. However, Shan Yu had already made the first move. Seeing that his palm was about to land on Renbachien's head, Gongjing could only avenge Renbachien. Shan Yu felt the wind from the punch behind him, but a smile appeared on his face. He came here with no intention of going back alive. His senior wasn't afraid of death and used his own head to exchange for this opportunity. What did he have to fear? As long as he killed this person in front of him, at this moment, Shan Yu felt a little regretful. The ambush on the mountain was originally prepared for the winged cavalry, but Renbachien's sudden arrangement of these people to investigate messed up their plans. If they allowed them to investigate, the arrangements that they had made would inevitably be exposed. As a last resort, they had no choice but to change their target. After this incident, he was also exposed. Therefore, he took advantage of the opportunity to assassinate Renbachien before those people escaped back. In the eyes of the Southern Volunteer Army, Renbachien was Qi Zixiao's #1 evil dog, and he was even more dangerous than Shiwanya. It was precisely his proposal to pledge allegiance that caused the entire South to be in a state of panic and unrest among the various sections. Unfortunately, he was pitifully weak, and assassinating him was the easiest way to succeed. Without him, the Pledge of Allegiance naturally couldn't be carried out. The Aboriginals' ruthless style would presumably incite the resistance of the entire Tianjin Basin. Even those who had surrendered previously would rebel again. At that time, the Southern Volunteer Army's chances of winning would increase greatly. Shan Yu's thoughts were all flashing in a flash. With a smile on his face, his palm was about to hit Renbachien's head. He could already see the scene of Renbachien dying under his palm. Presumably, Qi Zixiao would go crazy, right? He suddenly wanted to laugh out loud and opened his mouth, but the next second, the sharp pain in his hand caused his eyes to widen, and his laughter got stuck in his throat. He saw the tip of a spear drilling out from the top of Renbachien's head and directly piercing through his palm. An iron chain wrapped around his hand along with the spear, and then wrapped around his neck before wrapping around his body. It was like a giant python wrapping around him tightly. Heaven-grade weapon. Spirit wheel. How is this possible? Shan Yu opened his mouth wide and wanted to shout, but before he could speak, Gong Zhang's fist had already landed on his body. The sound of bones breaking could be heard as Shan Yu smashed through the wall like a cannonball. Gong Zhang had 6 wounds on his body, and blood was spurting out. When the Earthwill expert who had just injured Gong Zhang saw the golden patterned spear and the iron chain, he was shocked and shouted out what Shan Yu wanted to shout: heaven-grade weapon. Spirit wheel. How is this possible? When Mount Wu besieged the Empress, almost everyone had seen Renbachien, but no one knew that he was actually a spirit wheel expert and had condensed a heaven-grade weapon. One had to know that other things could be deceived, but heaven-grade weapons couldn't. Die. Gong Zheng was ecstatic as his huge body waved his arm and swept toward that person. That person's face was filled with horror. Without saying anything, he fled to the courtyard and ran out of the courtyard. Kill him. Renbaqian was still in shock and subconsciously shouted. Then, he shouted again, let him go. Just now, he was almost smacked into the scene of a car accident, causing his heart to almost stop beating. The moment the iron chain and the spear appeared, his heart began to beat at a speed that was as if it was about to explode. After shouting, kill him, he suddenly realized a problem. Letting this person go was a good opportunity. How many times had he been assassinated by assassins every day and every month? Did they think that he was easy to bully? Spirit will experts were almost at the peak of this world. Except for the top few experts, it was almost impossible to assassinate a spirit will expert. Renbaqian wanted to borrow Gong Zheng's mouth to spread the news that he was a spirit will expert. Who would dare to assassinate him then? Others could play the pig to eat the tiger, but he couldn't. In terms of strength, he was the king pig. As long as his strength hadn't increased to a certain level, there would always be all kinds of people who had designs on him. There might even be his accomplices among the surrendered practitioners in the city. If he didn't want this to happen again, he might as well play the tiger to eat the pig. Chapter 5:12. Chief, put me down. Zhang Qiang's eyes were filled with tears. I have no regrets now that Chief has treated me so well. Cut the crap. Zhang Chongkong spat out a mouthful of blood. He had been hit by Green Ghost's palm just now and had put some distance between them. They were still 15 kilometers away from Jiangbei. In the past, this distance would have been covered in an instant. But after experiencing a bitter battle and breaking out of the encirclement, and then carrying another person and running for dozens of miles, he felt that his speed was getting slower and slower. The qi in his body had long been depleted, and he could only move forward by squeezing out his body's potential. However, every cell in his body was groaning in pain. Just now, Green Ghost's palm had also caused quite a bit of damage to his internal organs. Feeling the two ghosts behind him that were like maggots in his bones, he felt that the 15 kilometers that could be covered in an instant in the past was now like a natural moat. TSK 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 TSK. Chief Zhan, the Golden Ring Residence Master, is actually like a stray dog. Is this generation of the Golden Ring Residence so afraid of death? No wonder the Golden Ring Residence surrendered. If your sect elders knew about this, they would probably vomit blood. A fluttering voice came from behind the two of them. Not only is he a stray dog, but he is also as timid as a mouse. He is not slow, but his hands are a little weak. Another voice also seemed to come from several directions, making it difficult to pinpoint the specific location. Green Ghost and White Ghost, I will definitely take revenge another day. Zhang Chongkong spat out blood as he cursed. Why another day? Isn't today the best opportunity? The previous voice continued to laugh strangely. Zhang Chongkong clenched his teeth and did not say a word. It's about time. Chief Zhan doesn't have much strength left, right? Why don't you stop and let us send off the famous timid Golden Ring Residence Master? As the voice spoke, the two of them gradually increased their speed, closing the distance from Zhang Chongkong from 50 to 60 meters in a short period of time. Golden Ring Residence Master, you can't escape. Why don't you obediently stretch out your neck and wait to be executed? TSK TSK. The two figures were like two wisps of green smoke that gradually closed the distance between them and Zhang Chongkong. They chased after Zhang Chongkong and ran forward parallel to him. Stay here. A figure suddenly floated up and landed behind Zhang Chongkong. The jade-green dagger in his hand stabbed toward Zhang Chongkong's back. Get lost. Zhang Chongkong exerted all his strength and slashed his saber behind him. The 9 golden hoops simultaneously emitted a crisp sound of metal clashing. This demonic sound was secretly learned by your ancestor from our Wangui sect. Do you think it will work on the two of us? The shadow behind Zhang Chongkong floated in the air and dodged the blade. Then, it sped up and stabbed at his back. Tisk, it's better to stop struggling. Chief of the Golden Ring residents can rest in peace. Another figure appeared in front of Zhang Chongkong, and a grayish short sword appeared in his hand. Zhang Chongkong did not say a word. His body charged forward fiercely, but he felt a chill on his back, followed by pain. Fresh blood spurted out from his back. He wanted to tighten his muscles to stop the bleeding, but he couldn't do it at all. Manor Lord. Zhang Qiang, who was being carried by Zhang Chongkong, struggled violently. He extended his arm to block the short sword that was aimed at Zhang Chongkong. A hand soared into the sky. Zhang Qiang clutched his severed arm. A pained expression appeared on his face, but he did not make a sound. Ah! Zhang Chongkong's eyes were bloodshot. He roared angrily and activated all the muscles in his body, forcing out the last trace of his strength to sprint forward. Tisk. There was another burst of strange laughter. The two of them continued to follow Zhang Chongkong, looking for an opportunity to attack. They were like wolves on the mountain, wanting to take a bite out of the other party's flesh with every bite. At the same time, they had to ensure their own safety. Otherwise, they might be killed by their fellow disciples while they were heavily injured. Even though the green and white ghosts had been together for many years, they still retained this habit. They would spend the least amount of effort to kill the enemy and sometimes even give up some opportunities. If it weren't for this characteristic of the Wangui sect disciples, Zhang Chongkong would not have lasted until now. Furthermore, the two of them knew that Zhang Chongkong would definitely not be able to hold on any longer. He would not be able to make it to Jiangbei. Even Zhang Chongkong himself knew that he was already using all his strength to maintain his running state. He looked at the torches on top of Jiangbei's city walls several kilometers away. That was where Painting Fairy and Kai Xian were. However, a sense of despair arose in his heart. He was afraid that he would not be able to return. I hope that Black Bamboo Academy's principal Bai Qian will treat my Golden Ring residents well. Zhang Chongkong thought sorrowfully. At this moment, a black shadow dashed over from the front, giving Zhang Chongkong a glimmer of hope. That was the direction of Jiangbei City. The person coming from that direction was one of his own. Brother, help me. I am from the Golden Ring residence. Zhang Chongkong roared with all his might. After shouting, he could no longer hold on and fell to the ground. Tisk. The green and white ghosts, who were following behind him, saw the opportunity and pounced at Zhang Chongkong with strange laughter. Ah! At this moment, Zhang Qiang, who was already seriously injured and had his wrist cut off, broke free from Zhang Chongkong's arm and shielded his back. Pft! 2 short knives and short swords pierced into his body at almost the same time. Zhang Qiang spat out a mouthful of blood, and his face revealed a sinister expression. Die! Die! Using his remaining hand, he threw a punch at one of the figures. However, that figure turned into a wisp of green smoke and disappeared. On the other hand, the other person slashed down with the short knife in his hand, almost cutting open Zhang Qiang's chest and abdomen. Then, he immediately drifted away. The green and white ghosts stood on the left and right, cautiously staring at the figure that was dashing over. Qiang! Zhang Chongkong roared and struggled to get up. At this moment, that figure ran in front of Zhang Chongkong, kicked him away, and continued to run. When the green and white ghosts saw this scene, they paused for a moment and completely didn't know what was going on. Could it be that this person who ran over from Jiangbei City wasn't the other party's reinforcements? From the looks of it, it didn't seem like it. At this moment, another 4 or 5 figures dashed over in this direction. Their heavy footsteps smashed against the ground, and every step produced a loud bang. The momentum of their running made one suspect that even a city wall in front of them wouldn't be able to stop them. The pupils of the green and white ghosts instantly narrowed. If they couldn't confirm the identity of that person just now, they could immediately confirm the identities of these people. Winged cavalry. Only the aboriginals would run around recklessly and have such a barbaric and fearless momentum. Go! The two of them almost instantly turned into green smoke and disappeared into the night sky. 10 seconds later, those figures appeared. When they saw Zhang Qiang's corpse, one of them immediately went to check on Zhang Chongkong, who had been kicked away. He's still alive. Send him back to the city. One of them carried Zhang Chongkong and Zhang Qiang's corpse into the city. Chapter 513. In the south of Jiangbei City, hundreds of winged cavalry warriors were riding on their mounts and spreading out to search for those who had yet to escape. Every once in a while, there would be a person wearing infrared night vision goggles. With this thing, anything that emitted heat would not be able to escape their eyes. After going deep into Great Xia and fighting against Great Xia in the north, the winged cavalry was already used to some very convenient and practical modern technology. For example, radio stations, walkie-talkies, night vision devices, binoculars. Now that walkie-talkies couldn't be used, they couldn't communicate with the other teams at any time. This made the winged cavalry feel somewhat inconvenienced. It is easy to go from frugality to extravagance, but difficult to go from extravagance to frugality. Fortunately, the night vision goggles and binoculars could still be used, so they didn't immediately return to their original state. There are people 600 steps to the southwest. One ran away and the other is lying on the ground. Immediately, someone went to check it out. He's dead. He just died. His body is still warm. A moment later, the winged cavalry warrior spoke again. 2,000 steps away, there are 5 people fighting. Surround them. Don't let him escape. Su Xing, it seems like your reinforcements are about to arrive. I'll spare your life today. I'll take your head another day. Even though the winged cavalry hadn't arrived yet, the sound of hooves could be heard a long time ago. Among the 4 people present, one of them was the sect master of the Soul Mountain sect, Su Xing. The other person was also wearing the uniform of the Soul Mountain sect. Both of them had injuries on their bodies, but they were much better off than Zhang Chongkong. You want to leave? Where are you going? Su Xing, who had been at a disadvantage all this while, sneered. He raised his sword and used the strongest trapping sword technique of the Soul Mountain sect. Gusts of sword wind surrounded the two of them, trapping them in place. They stopped in the distance. Since that's the case, I'll kill you first. When the 2 people who were trapped realized that they didn't hear the approaching winged cavalry, their eyes flashed with murderous intent. However, both of them avoided clashing with Su Xing's sword and saber. Seeing that the winged cavalry wasn't coming over, Su Xing was a little anxious. He immediately opened his mouth to shout, but the other party suddenly attacked fiercely, causing him to be flustered. The spiritual mountain sect is here. Fortunately, at this moment, another person let out a long roar, causing Su Xing to instantly become spirited. This time, it was the other two's turn to be anxious, and they immediately attacked fiercely. Fight! Stop him! One of them shouted. After that, the aura around his body continued to rise. After that, he shouted, stars shattering. Following that, a cold light rose from his hand. It was a cold light in the darkness, as though it wanted to split the darkness apart, making it hard for people to open their eyes. However, Su Xing's expression changed drastically. He quickly retreated. The sword in his hand was almost invisible. Only his arms kept waving, colliding with the cold light that separated the darkness. When the cold light disappeared, Su Xing stood on the ground, gasping for breath. His body was covered with wounds so deep that his bones could be seen. Go! Quickly retreat! The man who had just used his sword turned pale. Another person carried him and said, "Sect leader Su, we will meet again." With that, the two of them retreated into the darkness. However, the numerous saber lights caused the two of them to return at an even faster speed. They looked at the darkness in horror. Leave. Where are you going? There's no need to see each other again. Stay here. Following a rough voice, many figures that were much wider than ordinary people appeared in the darkness. Dozens of figures surrounded the five of them. Su Xing's face revealed a pleased expression. However, he was also slightly puzzled as to how they came so quickly. Winged cavalry. One of them said with a trembling voice and a bitter face. Do you choose to die now, or do you want to be captured and hung on top of the city wall for a few days before dying? A winged cavalry warrior wearing night vision goggles sneered. No matter what choice they made, they would still die. The winged cavalry didn't want captives. Fight! The three of them looked at each other and rushed toward the figures that surrounded them. Immediately, 3 winged cavalry warriors came forward. After a while, there were only severed limbs and a few broken swords left on the ground. Did anyone else escape? One of the winged cavalry warriors asked Su Xing. They all escaped separately. I don't know the situation of the others. Can you lead the way? All right. Subsequently, Su Xing and the other person traveled with this group of winged cavalry warriors. Along the way, he was extremely surprised that these winged cavalry warriors could actually detect living beings in the distance, be it humans or animals. This made it a lot easier for everyone to move around. The source of all this should be the strange things in the eyes of some of the winged cavalry warriors. Renbaqian followed the guards to an empty courtyard. The 2 doctors in Wu City, as well as the practitioners of the martial arts world who were skilled in traditional Chinese medicine, were all gathered here. Can he still be saved? Renbaqian looked at Zhang Chongkong, who had a large dent in his chest, multiple injuries, and a weak aura. Although his injuries are very serious, his body is very strong, and his life is not in danger, one of them said. Not bad. It's good that he can live. Renbaqian nodded and said to the few people sent by the Lingshan sect, "Someone go and inform Painting Fairy of the Golden Ring residence. You guys, do a good job. If you do a good job, you will be rewarded." Renbaqian nodded at the doctors in the courtyard before leaving with his men to wait for news. "Sir, how should we deal with the corpse?" Someone asked as he dragged the corpse of Shanyu, who had previously assassinated Renbaqian. "Hang it on top of the city wall and let the birds eat it. In addition, arrange for a few people to hide in the surroundings. Maybe someone will come to snatch his corpse. Kill them all." Renbaqian waved his hand. When he entered the hall, he saw the Empress sitting in the middle and sipping wine. Captain Gong Zheng of the winged cavalry was embedded into the wall. "Why aren't you sleeping, Your Majesty?" "I have nothing to do, so I came out for a walk." The Empress looked at him and was relieved to see that he was fine. She got up and was about to leave. "The night is long, and I'm not in the mood to sleep. Why don't I accompany you for a walk?" Renbaqian laughed. "I'm sleepy," the Empress casually said. "Thank you for your concern, Your Majesty," Renbaqian said from behind the Empress. The Empress had just stepped out of the door when she gently kicked the door sill with her heel. A piece of wood immediately brushed past Renbaqian's arm, and smashed into Gong Zheng's head, who was embedded into the wall. "I just can't sleep," the Empress said faintly. Renbaqian smiled, sat back in his chair, and said, "Captain Gong, Her Majesty has left." "Oh." Gongjing jumped down from the wall and saw that his head was still swollen. He then rubbed his head and said angrily, "I was almost buried by Her Majesty. Fortunately, you are fine. Otherwise, I would have been buried with you." The night passed, and Renbochin waited until dawn. News began to come back, and at the same time, a few people were sent back. After another 2 to 4 hours, all the winged cavalry warriors that were sent out returned. Finally, including Zhang Chongkong, a total of 8 people came back alive from this reconnaissance mission. Excluding Zhou Qing, only 7 Earth Will experts returned. Of the 3 from the Lingshan sect, 2 returned, and of the 5 from the Golden Ring residents, 2 returned. Ling Ziquan, who Zhang Chongkong thought was dead, actually didn't die. However, if he was discovered a little later, he would probably be dead. Of the 20 people from the other sects, only 3 returned. Renbochin comforted everyone, got them to record their contributions, and then arranged for everyone to recuperate. Although there were heavy casualties this time, some of the other parties' arrangements were exposed, and the spy, Shan Yu, was also exposed. Otherwise, if they had unknowingly stepped into the other party's trap during the attack, the winged cavalry would have suffered heavy casualties. This was considered a blessing in disguise. At the same time, some information about the Wang estuary was brought back along with these people. Chapter 5:14. Seniors, my master and martial uncle risked their lives just to enter Jiangbei City and inquire about the other party. Now, my master's corpse is hanging on top of the city wall. I hope that seniors can help me bring his corpse back. On a hillside, a young man around 15 or 16 years old was begging the people around him with a mournful look. Everyone looked embarrassed when they heard this. After a long time, someone sighed and said, "There's no need to think about this anymore. The aboriginals are powerful, and there are hundreds of winged cavalry warriors in Wu City. Not to mention, there are also Qi Zixiao and Shi Wanya. No matter how many people go, they won't be able to return and will only increase the casualties. Don't tell me that my master's corpse will be left on top of the city wall for the birds and beasts to eat." The young man looked sad when he thought of the scene outside Jiangbei City during the day. Will the corpses of those seniors be the same? As soon as this was said, 2 more people lowered their heads slightly. Some of the corpses hanging on top of the city wall belonged to their fellow disciples. One of the men opened his eyes and said in a deep voice, "Everyone here is seeking benevolence and getting benevolence. If I die, I don't want anyone to snatch my corpse while knowing that it's a suicide mission. There's already a big gap between the 2 sides. If there are more casualties in order to snatch the corpses, I'm afraid there's no point in fighting this war." Everyone nodded. It was a good thing for the young man to remember his master's kindness, but it was too unrealistic at this time. "Hee, kid, why don't you go yourself instead of begging them? If you're lucky, you might even come back alive." A series of strange laughter sounded in the forest. "Stop trying to mystify us." Someone snorted. "You're just sending him to his death," another person said. Although this young man's status and strength weren't worth mentioning, his master had sacrificed a lot for the greater good, and no one wanted to see him throw away his life. He. Aren't all of you waiting to die here as well?" The voice in the forest gradually faded away. The young man on the hillside took a deep look at everyone before turning his head and going down the hill. "Why are all of you here?" Renbochin asked the people in front of him. Du Laolu, Tong Lan, and all the students appeared in front of him. Previously, only Shirgan's team came with Shiwanya's team, and Renbochin didn't pay much attention to them and allowed them to move freely in the city. He didn't expect the others to come as well. After parting for nearly 2 months, everyone gathered together and exchanged what they had seen and heard along the way. When Renbochin heard the noise from afar, he felt a sense of familiarity that he hadn't felt for a long time. Yes, it was the feeling of the market downstairs. In particular, Shurgan and the others were spitting saliva everywhere. It was as if they had personally witnessed the Empress facing off against all the experts of Tianjin Basin at Mount Wu. It was only when Renbaqian arrived that they restrained themselves a little. I heard that Her Majesty is fighting the enemy here. How can we sit in the back and wait? Du Laolu raised his head and said in a rather heroic manner. You came all the way here to deliver your head. Renbaqian sneered. We have nothing to do in Valley City. We can't just sit there and wait, right? Her Majesty, Teacher, General Shi, and the winged cavalry are all here, so it should be safe for us to come over, right? Another student immediately asked. It was a girl with above-average looks. In fact, Aboriginal women were rarely ugly. In any case, Renbaqian had never seen one before. The girl's name was Shuryu, but she had nothing to do with Shurgan. In Dayo, Shur was a common surname. Shuryu was born into a commoner family and wasn't very outstanding in the past. However, after traveling for 2 months, she seemed to be much stronger than before. This way, we can follow teacher from time to time and listen to his teachings. Teacher hasn't lectured for a long time, another student said. Renbaqian grinned. He liked good children who loved to learn. In that case, let's find a place to stay today. The exam will be held in 3 days. Let's see if you have forgotten what I taught you before. Ah! Everyone was immediately confused when they heard about the exam. Take a break first. Come back at night and I will assign you homework. Renbaqian continued. After hearing this, everyone was even more confused. They just wanted to come to the front line to take a look and thought that Renbaqian wouldn't have the time to take care of them. They didn't expect to be greeted with exams and homework. Everyone immediately glared at the student who had just spoken. Their gazes were fierce, and they couldn't wait to beat him up. I heard that teacher is invincible in Tianjin Basin. The world is in chaos and harms the common people. Teachers should be busy with those important matters. Don't worry about us and just let us stay here. Renbaqian pondered. Are these brats praising me or scolding me? Where did they learn this from? Cut the crap. Where's the homework that I assigned to you? Hand it in first and then get lost to rest. Also, Shurgan and your team, hand over your homework as well. I will assign homework for you in the afternoon. You just have too little homework. Renbaqian said with a straight face. Everyone's faces immediately twitched. After everyone left, Renbaqian sat back in the hall and casually flipped through everyone's homework. Everyone had done it, but the content was unbearable to look at. Their understanding of Tianjin Basin was basically limited to the rebellions, the large number of bandits and gangs in the city, and the division of power between the various sections. Very few people mentioned the people's livelihood. Only a few people made him feel that they were pretty good. At least, they really used their brains. Among them, Shurgan was the best. Perhaps because of his upbringing, he was the son of the great elder and knew more about the country than others. Not only did he analyze the situation of the ordinary people in Tianjin Basin, but he also proposed some management methods. Simply put, it was to suppress and divide the people and combine strength and gentleness. Next was Shuryu, who also wrote a lot about his views on the ordinary people. There were also a few students who came from ordinary backgrounds. They focused on the ordinary people, but their views weren't as profound as Shuryu's. What the others saw were just superficial things. As for the worst homework, it wasn't beyond Renbaqian's expectations. It was Tonglan. Looking at the words kill, kill all, and slaughter in the homework, Renbaqian's expression became a little unnatural. How distorted was this little Lolita's worldview? Tonglan came from an upper-class background, was very talented, and had almost never encountered any setbacks. However, it was also because of this that she naturally divided people into different classes. Those who were talented were considered the upper class, those who weren't talented were considered the middle class, and those who weren't aboriginals were considered the lower class. The upper class ruled over the middle class class ruled over the lower class, and the lower class could die. Strength was paramount. It wasn't strange for such a Chinibu mentality to appear in her mind. It had to be said that she didn't classify Renbachien as the lower class because Tongjinya valued him and he was the husband chosen by the Empress. After most of the students rested in the afternoon, Renbachien called everyone over. This is the best homework. Renbachien threw out a homework book. Everyone saw the homework book on the table and looked at each other. Shirgan immediately revealed a complacent expression and pretended to be low-key. These few books are considered to have passed. Shiryu, Su Jinshan, Gulai. You guys and a few others have passed. Renbachien threw out a few more books, and a few of them looked relaxed. Everyone else has failed. Shirgan's homework has a total of 813 words. This homework will be based on Shirgan's homework. Shirgan will copy it 5 times, those who pass will copy it 10 times, and those who fail 50 times. Renbachien said. The complacent expression on Shirgan's face immediately froze. The others looked at him as if he was their enemy. Who asked him to write so many words? As for Tong Lan. Renbachien paused and looked at the little girl in the crowd. Copy it 100 times. Why? Tong Lan immediately jumped up like a cat whose tail had been stepped on. Why did she have to copy it 100 times while the others copied it 50 times? Her little face was fierce as if she was going to pounce and bite someone in the next moment. Do you know how to sing Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star? Renbachien asked. What is it? No. This is why you have to copy it 100 times. An hour later, Tong Lan stormed into a house in a hut. She stared at the 2 students inside and asked, Do you know how to sing Twinkle, Little Star? No, bang. Ah. 2 big holes suddenly appeared in the wall. In another room, Tong Lan grabbed the other 2 students and asked, Do you know how to sing Twinkle, Little Star? Yes. The student who heard the noise in the next room quickly replied. How do you sing it? Chapter 5:15. After sending a group of students to do their homework, Renbachien continued to be busy with some matters in the city. After all, only 8 out of the 30 people who went to investigate returned. Many of those who died were the pillars of some small sects, and many of them were sect masters. Their deaths caused a disturbance in many of the sects in the city. Renbachien had to put in some effort to appease them. Although it was said that swords had no eyes and death was a common thing in this world, everyone was mentally prepared. However, these people were still working for him and spying on military intelligence. At present, the hearts of the people hadn't been subdued yet, and they were only forced to surrender. Looking at the fact that only less than 30 people participated in the investigation of the Wang estuary, it was clear that most of the Earthwill experts only wanted to surrender to save their lives and didn't want to risk their lives. Then, just as he assigned them to do something, they immediately suffered such a huge loss. If they didn't deal with it well, these people's morale would fall apart, and it would take more effort to appease Tianjing Basin after the war. Fortunately, the other team that went to Mount Gue was completely led by Qin Yun's sword from the hidden village, so there weren't any mishaps. Although they were discovered by the other party and had a fight, these people from the hidden village were all experts of the older generation. Even among the Earthwill experts, their strength was considered to be among the top. They knew each other very well and had a better rapport with each other. After discussing with the Empress, Renbachien prepared to first establish the embroidered uniform guards. In any case, he would give these people an identity and let them feel at ease. Of course, even if it was established, they could only be regarded as non-staff. Simply put, they were temporary workers. The Empress would need to return to the imperial court to issue this order before it could officially become a department with authority. Similarly, the period from the establishment to the official status was also an opportunity for Renbachian to observe the internal structure and select the personnel. He used the status of temporary workers to drive these people to continue working for him and at the same time, observe and adjust this organization. After all, this kind of thing was very unfamiliar to him. Although he had some experience from his predecessors, this world was too different from Earth. Therefore, he had to observe and make changes bit by bit. After 2 days, Renbachian gathered the higher-ups of the various sections. There were less than 100 people who sat opposite Renbachian. Most of them were Earth will experts, and there were a few man will experts. Among them, some of the Earth will experts were rejoicing, while the man will experts were mournful. These were the pillars of the sect that had died, and there were no more experts in the sect. There were also a few who were still bandaged up, such as Zhan Changkong, Su Qing, and the others. Although Zhan Changkong's injuries were extremely serious, thanks to the high level of medicine in this world, he was able to walk with the help of Painting Fairy. Renbachian took a look at everyone's expression before speaking slowly. Everyone, I'm sure everyone knows about what happened a few days ago. A spy from the rebel army actually managed to sneak in and cause such a result. My heart aches. All of you who died were outstanding talents and pillars of Dayo. I will definitely make them pay the price for this. What I want to say is that some sect masters and elders have died, and the sect's strength has greatly declined. They might be a bit worried about the future. I can promise you that I will treat all of you equally. All the contributions of those who have sacrificed their lives for the country will be recorded and bestowed upon their descendants. After listening to Renbachian's words, the man will experts looked a little more relaxed. They were really worried that Renbachian would throw them away after using them. With Renbachian's promise, they felt a little better. This time, I have gathered all of you here because Her Majesty is concerned that all of you are serving the country without any status. She is preparing to set up a new department called the Rearguard Commandery. Remember when I said that all of you can leave Tianjing Basin and walk freely under the sky? Some of you will even become officials in the Imperial Court. From commoners to high-ranking officials in the Imperial Court, your chance is here. It's earlier than I expected. The Rearguard Commandery is on the same level as the various departments in the Imperial Court. The Commandant is a rank 3 official, 1 rank higher than me, Renbachian said. Renbachian replied. He was now a rank 4 fighter. Of course, no one really regarded him as a rank 4 fighter. The Rearguard Commandery will have 1 Commandant, rank 3 official, 2 Guard Commanders, rank 4 official, 4 Guard Commanders, rank 4 official, 8 Commandants, rank 5 official, 4 Town Provost, rank 5 official, and 10 Qianhu, rank 6 official. Below them, there are also Deputy Qianhu, Baihu, Secondary Baihu, Zongqi, and Xiaoqi. Among them, the Qianhu governs 1,000 people, the Baihu governs 100 people, the Zongqi governs 50 people, and the Xiaoqi governs 10 people. Renbachian gave a simple explanation. In fact, he had divided the Rearguard Commandery into 2 parts. They were divided into 2 guard stations, one for Tianjing Basin and the other for the Yun Nation, to supervise these 2 places. In his mind, the Yun Nation had already been classified as a part of Dayo. Many of the people below were surprised. According to Renbachian, 10 Qianhu were equivalent to 10,000 people. In that case, the Rearguard Commandery was almost at the same level as the 5 protectorates of Dayo. Renbachian was actually so generous. Would the Imperial Court agree? Furthermore, could Dayo afford to support so many people with its financial resources? No one felt that there was anything wrong with risking one's life for one's future. If it was really like what Renbachian said, many people would be interested. Not all the people in the martial arts world were above the common people. If there was a chance to become an official in the imperial court, not many people would reject it. However, the prospects of the rearguard commandery that Renbachian mentioned were too bright for many of them, and they didn't dare to believe it. Would the imperial court really agree to such a department? Could the remnant citizens of Tianjing Basin really do it? Would the imperial court really treat them like this? Many people had doubts in their eyes. Renbachian didn't mind the doubts in everyone's eyes and continued, "What is the purpose of living in this world? Power, wealth, status, strength. As long as you join the rearguard commandery, you will at least have a chance, even though it can't be said to be easy. Especially in terms of strength. As far as I know, none of the medicinal herbs from the 60,000 mountains have entered Tianjing Basin in the past 70 years. Renbachian threw another bombshell at everyone. These days, Renbachian had been chatting with Gongjing about the practitioners in Tianjing Basin. This made Renbachian understand how important the medicinal herbs from the 60,000 mountains were, whether it was for the aboriginals or the remnant citizens of Tianjing Basin. However, due to the difficulty of keeping them, only a few could be transported to Lan City, and it wasn't easy for the winged cavalry to purchase them. As for Tianjing Basin, it was even more scarce. It could be said that not a single strand of grass had flowed into Tianjing Basin in the past 70 years. It could be said that for the practitioners in Tianjing Basin to have 18 spirit wool experts, it could be said that this place was a place of outstanding people. After all, there were many experts in the Revolutionary Army who survived and retreated here, and the talents of their descendants weren't weak. There were only about 10 million people in Tianjing Basin, but the proportion of talented practitioners was higher than that of Great Xia and the Yun Nation. Thanks to this, it was much easier to clean up Tianjing Basin this time. These words made Renbachian realize something that could firmly tie these people to Dao's war chariot. Regarding the rearguard commandery, only a small number of Earth Will experts were interested in it, and most of them were suspicious. Initially, only a few dozen people participated in the spying. Although most of them surrendered, they didn't want to risk their lives. However, after hearing these words, they were immediately moved. "Sir Ren, what do you mean? The medicinal herbs in the 60,000 mountains will also be controlled in the future. The people of the rearguard commandery can report their needs and purchase them according to their official rank. The higher the official rank, the more they can obtain. Sir Ren, how does the rearguard commandery join? If they are at the intermediate level of the Earth Will level, what position will they have?" Chapter 5:16. Renbachian gave everyone 3 days to consider. As for joining the rearguard commandery, a spirit will expert would start from a Qianhu, an earth will expert would start from a Baihu, and a man will expert would start from a Zongqi. However, Renbachian gave the few small sects that had lost their pillar of support a Baihu. He gave them the opportunity. As for the future, if they didn't reach the Earth Will level, Baihu would be their upper limit. The upper limit of the Earth Will level would be a Qianhu. After settling the matter, Renbachian was satisfied with everyone's reaction. He went to look for the Empress and asked for a few more loyal winged cavalry warriors to form the foundation of his power on Earth. After all, the previous incident had made him realize that without his own power, it wouldn't be easy to do many things. Furthermore, Earth would always be his base camp, and he couldn't wait any longer to establish his power on Earth. Subsequently, he selected the 3 fiercest-looking winged cavalry warriors from the dozens of fierce-looking men. Aboriginals generally looked very fierce, and the winged cavalry warriors were even more so. On one hand, they had a murderous aura and demeanor, and on the other hand, they had all kinds of scars. These 3 were the kind of people that would make people turn around and run when they saw them from 100 meters away. They had fierce-looking faces, knife scars, bald heads, and murderous gazes. They were 1. 8 meters tall and weighed more than 150 kilograms, which was more than half the weight of Tyson. Renbochin felt that if he saw such people on the streets in the past, he would definitely hide at least 100 meters away. As long as they had a tattoo of a little red sunflower on their foreheads, humans and animals wouldn't come near them. He let the Empress take a look at the 3 people he had chosen. After having dinner with the Empress, he called them over again. "Stand there and hold each other's hands. Don't move," Renbochin said. Although the 3 were baffled, they still followed his instructions. Renbochin stood there while the 3 fierce-looking brothers held hands. This scene was really beautiful. "Stand there and don't move," Renbochin reminded them again and then placed his hand on one of their shoulders. The air around them was somewhat distorted. In an instant, the scene in front of them changed from darkness to light. The 3 of them looked around and were instantly dumbfounded. The moon, the courtyard, and the house were all gone. They were in a luxurious room that they had never dreamed of. The floor was made of jade, and the surrounding walls were made of unknown materials. Even without using their brains, they knew that they were not ordinary materials. Furthermore, there were many strange things around them. Principal Ren. This is. The 3 of them looked around in bewilderment. Paradise. Renbochin looked at the expressions of the 3 of them and casually made up a story. Where is the fairyland? God realm. Renbochin immediately corrected himself. These Dayo people had the concept of gods, but they didn't have the concept of immortals. Sir Ren. Why are you scolding me? That winged cavalry warrior looked aggrieved. Get lost. Renbochin was amused by his stupidity. This is another country. It's very far from Dayo and can only be reached by relying on a hearthstone, Renbochin said. Oh. The 3 of them nodded as they looked around curiously. In their hearts, since Renbochin was the one who brought them here, he would naturally bring them back. Not everyone had the opportunity to go abroad. They had to take a good look so that they could brag about it when they returned. Sir Ren, what's this? Television. What about this? Air conditioning. What about this? Go sit at the side and wait for me to change, Renbochin said impatiently. He left the 3 of them downstairs and went upstairs to change his clothes. However, before he could finish changing, he heard the sound of something being smashed downstairs. After he changed his clothes and went downstairs, he saw that the glass on the side of the sofa had been smashed into pieces. Who smashed my glass? Renbochin glanced at the 3 of them. This is called glass. I thought there was nothing. One of the winged cavalry warriors rubbed his head and said in a muffled voice. The other 2 nodded and said, Indeed, there doesn't seem to be anything. Renbochin shook his head. This bunch of idiots. He reckoned that it would take a lot of effort to teach them about Earth. Perhaps he should find them a tutor. Sit down. I'll tell you about the situation. Renbochin pointed to the sofa. Creak. As the 3 of them sat down, the sofa began to creak, boom. The 3 of them reacted quickly and jumped up the moment the sofa collapsed. Sit on the floor. Renbochin shook his head helplessly. Didn't Her Majesty say to listen to me? Renbochin sat on the sofa and said faintly. Yes. If Principal Ren has any instructions, we will listen. The 3 of them immediately got up from the floor and cupped their hands. Sit. This place is different from Dayo. Renbochin waved his hand. This place is very far from Dayo, so far that it will be difficult to reach in a lifetime. You have to use a hearthstone to go back and forth. I've already said this before. What I'm going to say next is that you will be living here from now on. Ah. What about the army? What about Her Majesty? The 3 of them were shocked and jumped up from the floor again. Sit down. This is Her Majesty's temporary imperial residence, so someone naturally needs to guard it. Renbochin pointed to the floor. Oh. The three of them immediately understood. It won't just be the three of you. There will be other people arranged. There will be a rotation in the future, and someone will come to replace you at a certain time. Then, you can return to Dayo, Renbochin said. The people selected this time weren't married, so they naturally didn't have any concerns. Furthermore, the Aboriginals had a long lifespan, so 10 years wasn't a problem for them. In fact, they had been here for 10 years, but only 3 years had passed in Dayo. After hearing Renbochin's words, the three of them immediately relaxed. Wasn't it just guarding? Although they were only responsible for killing people in the past, they had to obey Her Majesty's instructions. This place is very important, very important. It's hundreds, thousands, and tens of thousands of times more important than places like Great Xia and the Yun Nation. You will slowly understand this in the future. Therefore, Her Majesty has arranged for you to come here because she trusts you and hopes that you can do a good job. Renbochin had an expression that said that the party and the country had entrusted this important task to them. Sir Ren, don't worry. We will never let an enemy leave alive. Anyone who dares to violate this place will be killed without mercy. The three of them were greatly moved and immediately guaranteed. You are not allowed to kill. Later on, I will tell you when you can and can't kill, Renbochin said with a toothache. Renbochin spent the whole afternoon explaining the general situation on Earth to the three of them, but he wasn't sure how much they could remember. Later on, I will find a teacher for you. Remember, all you have to do is listen to what he says about this world. You are not allowed to answer any questions they ask about Dayo, Great Xia, the Yun Nation, or the Qin Nation. If anyone inquires about this, let me know, Renbochin instructed. Understood. We are very tight-lipped. The three of them grinned. Renbochin nodded. He still believed in the winged cavalry on this point. He then made a phone call and ordered dinner for 60 people. Renbochin fully believed in the appetite of the three of them. Then, he called Shenfeng and asked him to prepare a few extra-sized clothes for Fatty. At the same time, he also asked him to bring a tailor over tomorrow. The three of them sat on the ground in front of the television and watched the atomic bomb explosion cautiously. Sure enough, whether it's for the Empress or for them, only the atomic bomb is the way to go. Renbochin couldn't help but laugh when he recalled how the Empress looked when she watched the atomic bomb. Everything that happened when the Empress first came here was worth recalling. Unfortunately, the Empress was becoming more and more like an otaku. The rest of the dinner was as Renbochin expected. The three of them almost licked the bottom of the plates clean, but they still looked like they hadn't had enough. The night passed, and Renbochin came down the next morning to see the three of them watching Transformers with great interest. They had already reached the 5th installment. Before going to bed last night, he taught them how to use the remote control to watch a movie and then chose Transformers for them. Sure enough, Transformers was a man's romance, and the three of them watched it with great interest the whole night. Of course, Renbochin reckoned that even if he showed them Happy Goat and Baldy Chang, they would probably watch it with great interest the whole night. Chapter 5:17. When Shenfeng entered the villa, she was obviously frightened by the three burly men sitting on the floor. They were bare-chested, wore tattered leather shorts, and had crisscross scars all over their bodies. She made the most feminine gesture that Renbochin had seen since he met her. She stepped back and wrapped her arms around herself. Although she was indeed a woman who looked like a man, Renbochin sized her up. Renbochin sized her up and said, "You don't have a chest. What's there to hide? Boss, you are too mean." Shenfeng glared at him fiercely. Good advice is unpleasant to the ear, and good medicine is bitter. The truth is always unpleasant. Don't mind it, Renbochin said casually. Shenfeng glared at Renbochin again before asking, They are your colleagues and my bodyguards. I recently discovered that Earth is too unsafe, Renbochin said, feeling a little conflicted. Bodyguards. Shenfeng glanced at the three people inside. Their faces were ferocious, and their bodies were long. Their muscles were bulging, and there were all sorts of scars on their bodies. The coldness in their eyes when they occasionally turned their heads would cause one's heart to shiver. No one would dare to make a move on such people if they just stood there. Did you bring the plus-size clothes that I asked you to bring? Where's the tailor? Renbochin asked. Shenfeng turned around and brought in a few bags on the ground outside the door. Following her was a woman who looked like a young married woman. She wasn't very beautiful, but she was graceful and revealed 2 dimples when she saw people. Hello, I'm Jean He from Jean He Clothing, the young woman greeted. Well, please make some clothes for the 3 of them. Renbochin waved to the 3 people behind him. Come over and let her measure you. Ah! Only then did Jean He see that there were 3 men who looked like bears behind her. This gave her a fright, and her eyes started to shine. When the 3 of them stood up, their muscles bulged like a dragon swimming under their skin. Coupled with their scars, they were full of deterrence. Sir Ren. Change the way you address me. Renbochin turned his head and glanced at the 3 of them. This way of addressing you sounds weird. Just call me. Renbochin pondered. The Empress was the boss, but what was he? Lady boss. Call me second boss. Second boss. Although the 3 of them didn't know what that word meant, they still corrected themselves in time. Who's the big boss? Shenfeng asked even though she already knew the answer. Second lady boss. Renbochin answered without hesitation. You really know how to beat around the bush. Shenfeng smiled. Renbochin also felt that it was very complicated, but he had no choice. Shenfeng could directly address him as boss. If these 3 were to address him as boss, how would they address the Empress in the future? Lady boss. This title wasn't bad, and Renbochin really wanted to hear it. But they are easy to beat up. Stand properly. Let her measure you. Renbochin pointed at the 3 of them as they stood there. Jean He took out all kinds of tools from her bag and prepared to measure them. Renbochin flipped through the clothes that Shenfeng had brought. They were wearing jeans with extra weight, an oversized jacket, and an oversized t-shirt with all kinds of patterns. If he hung a metal chain on each of them, they would immediately transform into hip-hop singers. Clothes for this body type usually have to be custom-made. It's already not bad to be able to buy these. Shenfeng hid beside Renbochin and spoke while paying attention to the 3 burly men standing there. To her, these 3 people were full of deterrence. Moreover, she knew some things that ordinary people didn't, which made her extremely wary of these 3 people. However, she still asked, Boss, where did you find these people? Well, a few days ago, I went on a trip to the ravine and found a village. The people there are so poor that they can't eat and rely on primitive methods like hunting in the mountains to survive. The nation has said that those who get rich first will help the rest. The ancients also said that those who get rich will help the world. Seeing that their lives are so difficult, I recruited them to be my bodyguards. They look suitable. Even if they can't fight, it's good to put on an act to scare people. Renbochin was full of nonsense. Shenfeng felt a toothache when she heard this. A village so poor that they can't eat. Introduce me to a place that I can guarantee that they will all be able to eat. Those who get rich first will help the rest. There's nothing wrong with this, but why does it sound so strange coming from your mouth? Also, these 3 people can't fight. I reckon that even a special forces soldier wouldn't be a match for the three of them. Just by looking at their murderous aura, one could tell what kind of people they were. Hey, don't touch me, it's itchy. Do you see my fist that's as big as a casserole? Do you want to take a look? One of the guards on the other side shouted, raising his fist with a look of displeasure. You have to be meticulous and measure it bit by bit. Otherwise, if you mess it up, it will ruin the reputation of my shop. How did you train your muscles? You're so strong. The guard's voice sounded like he was squeezing water out of the last two sentences. This time, it was Renbachian's turn to feel a toothache. He saw Jean touching here and there. Why are you measuring people's chest muscles? Why are you touching my abdominal muscles? That guard's face turned red. Then, the two of them trembled together. That guard wanted to hit them, but Renbachian ordered him not to move, so he trembled. Jean, why are you trembling? Did you find him? Renbachian glared at Shenfeng with an unfriendly look. Jean clothing factory is quite famous anyway. I thought you wanted to make clothes, so I specially found a famous tailor for you. Shenfeng coughed twice after finishing her sentence. Cough, cough. How much longer? I haven't finished measuring this one yet. What's the hurry? Jean, said as she pinched that guard's back. Quite perky. Jean, clicked her tongue in admiration. Stand still. Renbachian saw that the guard's eyes were glowing fiercely and hurriedly said. This lady, we aren't selling our bodies or our skills, so please conduct yourself with dignity. Renbachian said. It's inevitable that we'll touch each other when we're measuring clothes. I've never seen you guys so troublesome. A few grown men are afraid that I, a woman, will take advantage of you. Jean, said. I'm not afraid, I'm just taking advantage of you, Renbachian muttered to himself. Today, he had finally seen it for himself. If a woman became coquettish, then there was really nothing for a man to do. However, you're really bold. This is a teddy and you still want to molest a Tibetan mastiff? Is this Jean really a tailor? Renbachian glanced at Shenfeng again. Fortunately, after Renbachian spoke, Jean finally restrained herself and conveniently took advantage of the three of them. It took her more than 10 minutes to measure their sizes. Even the thickness of the base of the thigh and the thickness of the ankle were measured. Renbachian increasingly felt that this wasn't like a tailor's, but more like a physical examination. Mr. Ren, do you want to make a set? Many wealthy businessmen make clothes here, and my skills aren't any worse than those overseas. Jean looked at Renbachian with glowing eyes. Forget it. Renbachian waved his hand. Make 3 suits and 3 sets of sportswear for each of you. In addition, make another 30 sets of clothes of the same size. Renbachian was prepared to bring a few winged cavalry warriors with similar figures next time. This way, the size of the clothes wouldn't be too much of a problem and would save him some trouble. Shenfeng opened her mouth. Make another 30 sets. Bring another 10 people. In addition, find me a few cooks. They need to be able to cook in a big pot and have decent cooking skills. Let's start with 10 people. Renbachian said, contact the developer and see if there are any houses for sale nearby. I remember that Wang Ji, who was previously investigated for economic crimes, has a villa nearby, right? How are we handling it now? With the addition of 10 winged cavalry warriors, this house was obviously not enough. Renbachian was going to find a villa nearby to use as a dormitory. As for money, he could get a loan anyway. Since he wasn't spending his own money, he naturally wouldn't feel bad. Chapter 5:18. On the second day after the 3 winged cavalry warriors arrived on Earth, Shenfeng left in the morning. Renbochin received a call from Yang Sen, which was naturally about these three people. This news had already reached the ears of some people in the upper echelons of the country. Everyone wanted to know what Renbochin wanted to do. Earth is too dangerous. With a few people, we can avoid what happened last time, Renbochin said. That was just an accident, Yang Sen reiterated. The wreckage of the flying motorcycle has already been checked, and it should have malfunctioned. That car accident was also an accident. Renbochin said faintly. Don't worry, I won't bring too many people, Renbochin said. Not just these three. Yang Sen immediately became alert. There will be a few more, but not too many. There are so many people on Earth. Are we lacking a few dozen people? They are different. Don't worry, they are all the same. I will restrain them and abide by the law. I'm the most law-abiding person, and so are my subordinates. In any case, it was a foregone conclusion that Renbochin would bring people over. This incident also alerted the people in the upper echelons and made some people ponder. On the one hand, Renbochin could bring people over. If he really brought a large number of experts, many people would feel uneasy. After all, these people were so strong that ordinary firearms were useless against them. In a city, such an expert's destructive power was no less than a small army. On the other hand, since he could bring people over so easily, could he also bring people over? Renbochin previously said that it would be difficult, but it didn't seem like that at all. Perhaps there would be restrictions. Just seeing that he only brought 3 people, it was obvious that there would be restrictions. In other words, it could be done as long as it was within the limits. So what were these restrictions? Besides going through Renbochin, was there any other way? Many people wanted to know the secrets here, but they didn't dare to risk angering Renbochin at this time. After all, they had to rely on him in all aspects. Especially after he brought people over, it became more troublesome to deal with. They must be checked for diseases. As you know, different environments have different strains of bacteria, which may have a great impact on Earth. Are there any new diseases related to me now? Renbochin asked casually. After such a long time, whether it was a disease from Earth or that world, there had never been a spread between the two worlds. After chatting with Yang Sen for a while, Renbochin finally agreed to give the 3 of them a test. It was the same as bringing pets from abroad back to China, and they needed to go through inspection and quarantine. However, Renbochin believed that Yang Sen wanted to conduct a physical examination on the 3 of them. And the facts proved that what he thought was right. The quarantine was conducted at the laboratory of the Messier 87 department. Renbochin brought the 3 of them, who couldn't take their eyes off everything, to the Messier 87 department for a full 5 hours of various examinations. While Renbochin and Yang Sen were chatting at the side, the 3 of them injured more than 10 so-called quarantine officers. The one who suffered the most serious injury had a small portion of his bones broken, and this was under the circumstance that they were being lenient. The reason was that someone had touched their balls. A black off-road vehicle was parked a few hundred meters away. 2 men in it used binoculars to look at a villa in front of them. In front of the villa were 3 bears who were wearing baggy sweatpants and were bare-chested, revealing their muscles and scars. One of the 3 men was lifting a black car and exercising up and down, while the other 2 were sparring. Within the range of their sparring, it was as if an excavator had passed by. The lawn was almost completely gone, and mud was flying everywhere. This extremely mysterious scene gave the 2 of them a headache. Are all the people in the blessed enclave like this? One of them asked. I don't think so. It is said that there are also civilians there, the other man replied. I always feel that this scene is like an alien invasion of Earth. Seriously speaking, it is. Aren't there aliens everywhere outside of Earth? The 2 of them observed the movements there while communicating with each other. Is the blessed enclave considered Earth or an alien planet? I feel that the blessed enclave might be on the other side of Earth. Behind us is the United States. Renbochin stayed on Earth for 4 days and finally made arrangements for the 3 of them. At the very least, he taught them some things that they had to abide by. For example, they weren't allowed to kill people. If an outsider wanted to know the purpose of their visit, they weren't allowed to hit Shinfeng, the chef, the cleaner, the food deliveryman, or the police. It was really difficult for them to understand who they could and couldn't hit in a short period of time. In the past few days, he had also recruited 5 tall and strong chefs. After all, chefs who could stir-fry in large pots were generally of good physique. Although they looked quite strong, compared to the 3 of them, they were probably like a husky and a Tibetan mastiff. After tasting the food, Renbochin felt that the taste of these chefs was just passable. The advantage was that they could still taste passable when stir-frying in large pots. This was very important. This level of taste was enough for the winged cavalry warriors. As for a house, they hadn't found one yet, so the 3 of them could only sleep on the floor in the living room. However, this didn't matter to them. Sleeping outdoors was a common thing, let alone sleeping on a jade floor. Until now, the 3 of them still firmly believed that the floor was made of jade. Let me remind you again that this place is different from Dayo. You aren't allowed to kill people here. If they aren't enemies, you aren't allowed to hit them, especially the chefs. You aren't allowed to use the chefs as fitness equipment. Renbochin said sternly, also, I will find a teacher for you in the afternoon and evening. Don't hit him. Don't hit him. Don't hit him. Don't threaten him. If he asks you anything, just say that you have been living in the mountains and don't know anything. Don't worry, second boss. The 3 of them pounded their chests with their fists, making drumming sounds. Renbochin was worried that their hearts would jump out of their throats if they punched them. That's all. I'm going back to accompany Her Majesty. Sir Ren, ask Colonel Li to help me tell Xiangyu from Jinyu Pavilion that I can only visit her in a few years. One of the winged cavalry warriors scratched his head. His name was Li Zhe. Li was a small surname in Dayo, and Renbochin hadn't seen many of them. Other than him, he had only seen Colonel Li, Li Tanhua. Don't worry, I will find a good family for her. Renbochin sneered. Oh, that's good too. That winged cavalry warrior scratched his head. She is already married. I will find someone else when I get there. Renbochin sighed. Sometimes, talking to this bunch of idiots was like punching cotton. The next second, he disappeared into thin air with the big and small bags beside him. Some of them were skunk bombs, some were students' exam papers, and some were binoculars and infrared detectors. He also asked for some energy detectors, which were the ones that Yongsan had brought over previously. However, he could only get them the next time he came back. Is he really gone? The 3 winged cavalry warriors saw Renbochin disappear into thin air and reached out to touch him, only to feel empty air. That's amazing. That Heartstone must be a great treasure. By the way, how will the patrol be arranged? Sir Ren didn't say. 1-on-1. The loser will have to patrol at night. I'm hungry. Let the chef cook. We will fight after dinner. Yesterday's red braised pork tasted good. I exercised a little today, so I feel like I can eat more. Let him cook more. The 3 of them were only slightly surprised for a moment before they focused their attention on eating. Sir Ren seemed to have mentioned that someone called teacher was coming. What does he look like? Ask if anyone comes later. If he is, then stay. If he isn't, then beat him out. In the afternoon, the 3 of them had just finished their 3-hour lunch and were reminiscing about the delicacies when the doorbell suddenly rang. Who is it? A winged cavalry warrior opened the door and looked outside with a fierce look. Sorry. My name is Enran. I made an appointment with the owner of this house. He said he was looking for a private tutor. A bespectacled young man stood outside the door. When he saw the burly man looking at him fiercely, his legs immediately went soft. Chapter 5:19. When Renbochin returned to Dayo, the first thing he did was to put up a bounty notice. Su Qing, surnamed B, identity unknown. One day, after drinking outside the city, he saw a cow and chased her. After being discovered, he panicked and fled. This person is wretched, corrupt, and guilty of the most heinous crimes. If anyone in the know reports and verifies the case, he will be rewarded with 100 taels of silver. There was a portrait of Su Qing attached. Although it didn't look like him, it was enough. Renbochin took out the notice and handed it to Zhuoleng, who was also the nephew of Lingshan sect Suqing. Although there weren't many tasks assigned to them these days, Renbochin felt that this person was quite smart and handled matters appropriately. Get someone to make a few copies and post them on the city gates of each city, Renbochin said. Yes. Suqing scanned it with his eyes, didn't ask anything, and left. He naturally knew about Su Qing's identity, but he didn't know about the collusion between Su Qing and Renbochin. It was normal for Renbochin to issue a bounty to arrest the envoy of Great Xia. However, this crime was really disgusting. If he were to be accused of such a crime, he would probably want to die. Half a day later, the bounty notice was posted in important places in Jiangbei City. After that was Wu City. After that, this wanted poster that filled people's imagination was quickly pasted to the surrounding cities. Many cities had just posted the notice, and it attracted a lot of onlookers. After all, these cities were currently in the hands of the Aboriginals. Although there were people who comforted them, they were still anxious and didn't know what would happen in the future. Therefore, as soon as the notice was posted, it was immediately surrounded by people who wanted to see what was written. What does it say? I don't know. There's a portrait, and it looks like a bounty notice. No matter where one was in this world, illiterate people were the majority. Cough, cough. A middle-aged man wearing a patched robe walked into the crowd. He coughed, and the people around him immediately made way for him. There was no imperial examination in Tianjing Basin, and there were no channels for promotion. As a result, scholars weren't very respected, and many people couldn't bear to see them studying at home every day. However, whenever this happened, it was their turn to show their skills. Mr. Jing, what does it say? Many people behind him asked. Mr. Jing's face showed satisfaction. His most glorious time was every time when he was like this. When he saw the contents of the notice, the corner of his mouth immediately twitched, and then he flew into a rage. There's actually such a person. It was a heinous crime. This kind of person deserves to die. What did he say? Everyone was curious. Damn it. Mr. Jing cursed again before reading the contents of the notice. The crowd immediately burst into an uproar. No way. Is that true? I've heard of it. It happened in Jiaozi village. A young man in the village was discovered. What happened next? Someone immediately asked. Then he disappeared. I don't know where he went. With this opening, the atmosphere became even more lively. For a moment, everyone forgot about the Aboriginals taking over and what they should do in the future. Instead, they began to discuss this matter excitedly. 2 days after Renbochin handed the notice to Zhuoleng, he gathered the people from all the sects again. Everyone, what's your decision? Renbochin sat at the head of the table and leisurely looked at everyone while holding a cup of iced coke. Sir Ren, I'm willing to join, someone immediately stood up and answered. Me too. I'm willing to serve Dayo. Renbachian's gaze paused on the person who said that he was willing to serve Dayo. This person was a little clever, but that was all. However, it was impossible for everyone in this world to be smart. If everyone was like an old monster, he wouldn't be able to survive. Renbachian remembered that there were about 40 Earth Will experts who were willing to join. This meant that apart from the people from the hidden village, more than half of the remaining 63 Earth Will experts were willing to join. Every sect had one. However, Renbachian also noticed a problem. Most of the sects left one person behind. After thinking for a while, Renbachian understood that they didn't want their sects to completely become vassals of the imperial court. The person who was left behind to carry the burden. This included the Lingshan sect. As for the Golden Ring residents, except for Painting Fairy, the remaining 4 Spirit Will experts all spoke up. Even Zhan Chongkong was the same. It seemed like the Golden Ring residents was really determined. As for those Man Will experts who had lost their chief and elders, they naturally wouldn't give up this opportunity. Renbachian looked at Qingyun's sword and Zhuo Qing, who both closed their eyes and remained silent. That's it then. Those who joined the rearguard commandery can stay. The rest can go back first, Renbachian said faintly. After a while, the courtyard was half empty, and only about 60 people remained. Congratulations to everyone for making a wise choice. Renbachian placed the coke on the table and raised his voice. You are the first batch, the easiest batch to join, and also the batch with the most opportunities. In the future, you will be working for the Imperial Court and Her Majesty. Therefore, no matter what happens, as long as you abide by the laws of the rearguard commandery and Dayo, the Imperial Court and Her Majesty will support you. At the very least, I will be your backing. I don't know what you want. Maybe it's money, maybe it's power, maybe it's women, maybe it's treasures. Renbachian looked around at everyone and then said forcefully, sure. As long as you do what you should do. I don't need to say anything else. If you need various kinds of medicinal herbs, as long as they are available in the 60,000 mountains, you will have the opportunity to get them. At least in a few years, you will be able to say goodbye to your former selves. The rearguard commandery implements 2 distribution systems. One is your salary, which is easy to understand. At the same time, everyone has a fixed amount of medicinal herbs to purchase. What Renbachian said at this moment was what everyone wanted to hear the most. Power and beautiful women didn't mean much to most Earth Will experts, but the quota to purchase medicinal herbs was what they needed the most. Sir Ren, how many medicinal herbs will be purchased? You can write down the items you need and hand them in. After that, the quota will be determined according to the function, rarity, and value of these medicinal herbs. At the same time, I have another important news to inform you. Just now, I said that there are 2 distribution systems. The most important is the second system, which is the point system. No matter what mission you do, you will get points. The more dangerous the mission, the more points you will get after completing it. As for points, you can exchange them for things that you can't buy even if you have money. For example, heaven-grade weapons. I think everyone wants them, right? Renbachian smiled at everyone. Everyone immediately became spirited. For example, secret manuals. Whether they are passed down from the Hao Nation, Great Xia, the Yun Nation, or even the various sects. As soon as Renbachian said this, everyone's faces suddenly changed. Many of them were ecstatic, but many of them looked gloomy. Sir, this must not be done. Someone immediately stood up and objected. He couldn't care less about offending Renbachian. The martial arts of a sect were the foundation of a sect. How could it be passed on to outsiders? Renbachian had already expected this reaction and naturally had a countermeasure. Don't worry. Each of your sects can choose 3 core martial arts manuals and submit their names to me. They will only be placed in the Royal Library and will not be included in the points exchange list. Furthermore, the martial arts exchange for points must not be passed on to others. Otherwise, regardless of whether it is the imparter or the learner, they will be killed without mercy. Renbachian's words made those people's faces ease up. In addition to heaven-grade weapons and secret manuals, there are also treasures. Some rare treasures will also be included in the points exchange, such as Kirin blood. The blood of a true dragon. Renbachian thought of the husky in the pond in the palace. Back then, the seventh prince of Great Xia used the blood of a true dragon to exchange for its essence blood, right? Although it was useless to him, it should be of great use to some people. Furthermore, this was just an example. If someone really needed it, they could just give it some blood. In any case, it was such a big lump that occasionally giving some blood was beneficial to its health. Sir Ren, are you serious? Upon hearing this, many people couldn't sit still and immediately stood up. Whether it was heaven-grade weapons or secret manuals, there would always be a chance if they put in more effort. However, some treasures really couldn't be obtained anywhere. Just these two things that Renbachian mentioned were enough to make many people desperate. Of course. Renbachian laughed. There are 7 drops of the blood of a true dragon in the palace. This is the essence blood found on the corpse of an ancient true dragon, not the little worm in the pond in Great Xia. In addition to these, there are also the cloud crystals. Other rare treasures will gradually be included in this list, Renbachian added. This time, the rest of the people couldn't sit still anymore. If treasures like the blood of a true dragon and the blood of a Kirin were only needed by a small number of people, then everyone needed the cloud crystals. This precious mineral was obtained from the stomach of the flower eagle when Renbachian returned from the iron mine in Mount Lupan. As long as a little bit of it was added during the forging of a weapon, the weapon would be filled with spirituality. It could be said to be a dream come true for everyone. Most importantly, this kind of thing was also very useful when a spirit wool expert was condensing a heaven-grade weapon. Even if the cloud crystals couldn't move them, as Renbachian had mentioned, other rare treasures would gradually be included in the list of items that could be exchanged. There would always be something that people would risk their lives for. As soon as Renbachian explained the point redemption system, everyone couldn't sit still anymore. All of their faces were filled with excitement. Renbachian was also very satisfied with everyone's reaction. This way, the temptation he gave them was great enough, and he wasn't afraid that they wouldn't work hard. As for the points that could be exchanged, well, this was good enough to look at. Although it wasn't unattainable, it would still be difficult for even a spirit wool expert to achieve it. If it was an ordinary mission, it would probably be impossible to achieve it in a lifetime. It would only be possible if one completed many more difficult missions. If someone could really achieve it, such a person would be valuable enough for Renbachian to use rare treasures to win him over. Chapter 520. There were a total of 47 Earth Will experts and 11 Man Will experts who had become members of the Rearguard Commandery. There were 58 Baihu experts. The 11 Man Will experts were all sect chiefs or elders who had died in the investigation of the Wang estuary. Renbachian gave them some privileges, which could be considered as a favor to the descendants. At the same time, Renbachian gave each of them a quota of 22 people. They were divided into 2 small banners and 20 tiki. As for the commander, the position was left empty as it was necessary to leave something for others. The positions of small banners and commander generally required the strength of a Man Will expert, and the highest a Man Will expert could reach was the position of a commander. Below the small banners were the tiki, which was considered the foundation of the Rearguard Commandery. Below the tiki, there was a group of non-staff personnel called the strongmen. After all, the goal of the Rearguard Commandery wasn't only to fight and kill, but also to monitor the local area. At this time, the rearguard commandery has just been established, so everything is simple. You'd better choose carefully among the slots I'm giving you. Don't just shove anyone in. After all, these people are your subordinates and will work for you. Their ability will determine whether you can do things well in the future and determine your future prospects. In addition, you can also recruit some strongmen to assist the tiki, act as informants, or do other chores. Those who are above the tiki are considered officials, and the imperial court will naturally pay them a salary. As for the strongmen, you will need to think of a way to recruit them. Go back and prepare now. Come to me in 3 days to collect your tokens. After Renbochin explained everything clearly, he let everyone leave. After everyone left, Gongjing scratched his head and asked, "Sir, does the imperial court have money? Didn't you just rob a fortune from Great Xia? When I came here, I heard that Great Xia and the Yun nation have cut off our salt supply. The officials in the imperial court have used that fortune to buy salt," Gongjing said. Renbochin nodded. He had also heard about this. After all, the Empress would receive news from Goose City every 2 or 3 days and would occasionally tell him about it. The difficulties are only temporary. After we conquer the Yun nation, you can even take a salt bath if you want. Renbochin smiled. I want to see the sea. I heard that there are big fish in the sea that can feed a person for a lifetime. It's like a piece of land when it floats to the surface of the sea, said Gongjing with a grin. I want to see it too. Even though Renbochin felt that he was talking about whales, he couldn't say for sure. The animals in this world were larger and more ferocious than those on Earth. For example, pandas ate bamboo on Earth because of the environment. In this world, they ate bamboo because they were at the bottom of the food chain. Other than eating bamboo, they probably couldn't even beat a rabbit. If it's like this on land, then the marine life in this world should be even more spectacular. That night, Renbochin and the Empress were enjoying the shade in the courtyard. When they heard a guard report that someone who claimed to be an old friend was here to see Renbochin, they knew that the person they were waiting for had arrived. He asked someone to bring him to the front hall. Sure enough, it was Su Qing. When Su Qing saw Renbochin, his face started to twitch. His facial expression alternated between black and green as if he had eaten a mouthful of hot feces. In fact, his experience was no different from eating a mouthful of hot feces. When he saw the arrest warrant, he almost spat out a mouthful of blood. He even had the thought of fighting Renbochin to the death. If this matter were to spread back to Great Xia, he would really become a laughingstock. He was a famous handsome man in Great Xia. Many girls in the brothels were jealous of him for a second look. At this moment, he had become a pervert who had sex with a cow after drinking indayo. Even if others didn't believe it, they would definitely use this matter to mock him. It was simply too vicious to destroy someone's reputation. After staring at Renbochin for a long time, he saw that he was still drinking tea, as if nothing had happened. Finally, like a resentful wife, he complained, "Sir Ren, why do you have to do this? You forgot to leave your contact information last time," Renbochin said unhurriedly. Renbochin said unhurriedly, "Look, you appeared in front of me so quickly. This means that this method is quite effective." Speaking of this matter, Su Qing's face twitched even more. After a long while, he sighed and said, "You have seen the person. Tear down those arrest warrants." Then, he asked, "What exactly do you want from me?" "Send some things to the palace of Great Xia," Renbochin said faintly. Su Qing's expression immediately became serious. "I do have a few people in the palace, but they can't do much. Their main job is to gather information. The power in the Great Xia Dynasty Palace is much stronger than you think. It's not that serious. Just help me put a few small things in the palace. You can put them anywhere, such as in the garden or in the grass. What are you going to do? Come, look at this thing." Renbochin picked up a gray cylindrical object on the table and said. It was green and had been sprayed with camouflage patterns. There was a safety switch on it. Since it didn't need to explode, the outer shell was made of ordinary aluminum. Is this the kind you used in the north? I've said it's useless. It can be used against ordinary people, but it's useless against experts, Su Qing said immediately after taking a look. It's not what you think. Renbochin knew that Su Qing had misunderstood and thought that he was holding a grenade. It's not easy to plant people in the palace. I won't let them take risks easily. Let's go out of the city. I'll show you. Renbochin called out to Shi Hu, who was outside, and went to the backyard to get Lin Chaola, who was sleeping soundly. She even bit him. Take this and throw it as far as you can, Renbochin said to Shi Hu. Okay, I'm familiar with this thing. Shi Hu was elated when he saw the thing in Renbochin's hand. He had used it many times in Liao City, although this one was a little different. Retreat. Renbochin handed the thing to Shi Hu, turned around, and ran back. Su Qing was puzzled. As far as he knew, this thing wasn't very powerful, but he still followed Renbochin and ran. Lin Chaola was sitting on the ground yawning. She looked around and landed beside Renbochin in a flash. Shi Hu was left standing there with a silly smile on his face. He turned to look at Renbochin, rubbed his head, removed the safety ring, and weighed it in his hand. Based on his experience, this thing would explode in a few breaths' time. He didn't know why Renbochin was running so fast. The next second, his face turned green, and a pungent smell that made it hard for him to breathe filled his nostrils. His chest and head felt as if they had been hit by a sledgehammer, causing him to see stars. He couldn't even breathe, and his lungs felt like they were being squeezed tightly. Chapter 521. Don't come over. Renbochin's face changed when he saw Shi Hu running in his direction. He quickly pointed in another direction and shouted. He had a deep understanding of the persistence of this stench. Shi Hu had just come over, and even if he was closer to Renbochin, he would still be covered in the stench. Renbochin would never forget the previous experience. As such, he quickly shouted when he saw Shi Hu running in his direction. However, it was too late by the time he shouted. The speed of an Earth-will expert wasn't something he could compare with, even if he had a head start of 100 meters. Shi Hu swept past him like a gust of wind. With a wave of his sleeves, he did not take away a single cloud, only leaving behind a stench that made people want to faint. Renbochin's face immediately turned green. Wretch! Wretch! Renbochin quickly ran to the side to vomit, and Lin Chaola had already run away as if she had seen a ghost. Only Su Qing, who didn't know what was going on, suddenly smelled the smell of old feces that had been sealed for 100 years mixed with something else. It made his chest tighten, and his vision blacked out. He suddenly staggered and almost fell to the ground. Wretch! Wretch! Renbochin and Su Qing vomited on both sides. You want me to bring this thing to the palace? Wretch! This is just the aftermath. It's not even a tenth of its true power. Go to the center and smell it. Wretch! You are crazy. You just want to discuss Xiao Bailong, but you don't have to do this, right? Wretch! I prepared 1,000 of them for Xiao Bailong. As long as you can put them all in the palace, I guarantee that Xiao Bailong will immediately move the capital. Wretch! The two of them retched for a long time before recovering a little and gathered together to talk. As a result, when they stood together, both of them showed a look of disgust. As they stood together, the stench became even stronger. Your request is impossible. Even if you bring this thing into the palace, it will be discovered immediately if you use it. Su Qing pinched his nose and looked at Rinpochen with an ashen face. He looked at Rinpochen as if he was looking at Ultraman. The things that could explode on the battlefield with Great Xia were created by him. There was also the poisonous gas from before. Now, he made this thing. This person was really unusual. Thanks to him, Rinpochen suddenly realized that sometimes, the stench was more deadly than the poison. I have a way to make this thing explode on its own at a predetermined time. Rinpochen's face turned green. He pinched his nose and stood there with a look of disgust. He didn't forget to fan the air with his hands even though it was useless. Is it reliable? Su Qing asked with a frown. If that was the case, it would still be feasible. I can at most extend it for 24 hours, but that would be too easy to be discovered. It would be best to extend it for around 2 hours. What is your purpose in doing this? 1,000 of these things releasing their stench at the same time. Don't you think Xia Baicheng's expression will look good? He gave me so much trouble, so a little revenge can be considered reciprocation. And after this, I will tell him that I did it. He won't be able to take this lying down and will send troops. At that time, your opportunity will come, Rinpochen said. Although Deo was already fighting on 2 fronts, he wasn't worried. Almost all of Great Xia's soldiers who could fight were dead. Now, only a small number of soldiers were left in the country, as well as the one stationed at the border of the Yun nation. Hongwu didn't feel too much pressure. As for recruiting and training new soldiers in Great Xia, the Yun nation would probably have become the Yun Protectorate by then. He had enough confidence in the brains and combat power of the Aboriginals. The two were complete opposites. The only thing he needed to worry about was rations. Su Qing pondered for a moment, nodded, and said, "Give me the things. I can't guarantee that all of them will be useful. 1,000 of them is too much, and it will be difficult to transport them into Great Xia's palace. However, I should be able to transport some of them. Come and collect them in 3 days, and I will give them to you. These things can only be stored for half a year. After that, they will be leaked. I hope you can get them as soon as possible," Rinpochen said. He reached a consensus with Su Qing after a few words. Rinpochen could take revenge, and Su Qing could also get the opportunity he wanted. He had no reason to refuse. By the way, you said that the people in Great Xia's palace are very strong. As far as I know, there are only a few spirit will experts in Great Xia, right? It's not as simple as it seems. A spirit will expert has a lifespan of at least 200 years. The royal family of Great Xia has been looking for talented young people and has accumulated a lot of strength over the past few hundred years. As far as I know, there are at least 8 spirit will experts in the palace, and at least 3 of them have condensed heaven-grade weapons. Rinpochen nodded thoughtfully. 8 spirit will experts weren't even comparable to Tianjing Basin. However, this was only the palace. If the entire Great Xia was included, there would be at least 100 spirit will experts. The more people there were, the more experts there would naturally be. Fortunately, most of the spirit will experts occupied their own territories and ignored Xia Baicheng. Come and find me in 3 days. Rinpochen nodded at Su Qing and turned to walk toward Jiangbei City. Stay away from me. I will give you half a month off. Don't let me see you during this time. Rinpochen's face immediately turned green when he saw Shihu approaching him. Shihu looked aggrieved. Wasn't he the victim here? Who told you not to make it clear? He thought it was the same thing as in Liao City. On the way back to the residence, people and animals scattered everywhere they passed. Zhuoleng and the others saw Rinpochen return and came over to greet him. However, their expressions immediately changed and they took a few steps back. They were too familiar with this feeling. Those days simply made them want to die. Greetings, Sir Ren. The six of them were reminded of the tragic memories of those days, and their expressions became extremely strange. It's all right. Step back. Renbochin waved his hand and walked across the courtyard to the Empress's door. She was still watching a television series. Your Majesty, I just met Su Qing, and he has agreed. Xiao Baichong has given us so much trouble, and we can finally return the favor. Renbochin stood in front of the door and smiled. The Empress turned to look at him and rolled her eyes. Her charming and moving gaze made Renbochin's heart restless. Why are you standing so far away? I'm afraid that your Majesty will dislike me. Why are you so weird today? Come over. The Empress didn't take it seriously. I'll go over then. Renbochin was a little dispirited as he strode into the house. However, just as he took 2 steps in, the Empress frowned, and her expression changed drastically. She struck out with her palm, and Renbochin felt his body fly backward uncontrollably. Your Majesty, you said that you won't dislike me, you didn't say that your body stinks. The Empress said with a cold face, why are you covered in it again? Renbochin felt that he was quite unlucky and told her what happened just now. Oh, I see that you have been working too hard these days, so I'll give you a few days off. Go back to Earth and rest for a few days, the Empress said. Renbochin was speechless. Retribution came quickly. He had just given Shihu a day off, and the Empress immediately gave him one. Your Majesty, have a good rest. Renbochin looked at the Empress resentfully, went out, and called 3 winged cavalry warriors to stand there. He ordered them not to move and brought them back to Earth with him. I'm a little bee, flying among the flowers. Pow! Boom! As soon as Renbochin returned to Earth, he heard noises coming from nearby. He turned around and saw 3 winged cavalry warriors playing a finger-guessing game. One of them slapped someone, and the other was plastered to the wall. What are you doing? Renbochin's face darkened. Hello, Lady Boss. The 3 of them immediately stood up and bowed. You're tuning into the LoveLore Library YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.